Unfortunately, President Kenyatta has not seen it fit to congratulate me, but I think that's fine. I mean, maybe he's a bit disillusioned, or maybe he's unhappy that I defeated his candidate, but that is the nature of politics.
Ruto was also put to task to explain his stand on the LGBTQ community.
We do not want to create a mountain out of a molehill. This is not a big issue for the people of Kenya. When it becomes a big issue for the people of Kenya will make a choice. As it is now, we are grappling with 5 million young people who do not have jobs, 4 million people who are hungry, and that is my concern. We have our tradition, we have our customs. We will continue to respect other people's customs as they respect our customs and our tradition.
IEBC has gazetted the list of party nominees to the Senate and National Assemblies ahead of their first sitting today. In a notice by Commission Chairperson Wafula Chebukati, parties have nominated 12 members of the National Assembly, 16 women to Senate, 2 youth representatives to Senate, and 2 nominees to represent persons living with disabilities in Senate. The Kenya Kwanza camp, which is an affiliate of several parties including ANC, has bagged 6 nominees to the National Assembly. They include 5 from UDA party and 1 from ANC. The UDA members are Jackson Kosgei, who will represent persons living with disability, Teresaya Mwangi for the youth, Abdisarit Khalif for the marginalized, Dorothy Ikiara Awaka, and Joseph Iraya Awaka. The ANC nominee to the National Assembly is Joseph Hamisi, who has been nominated under the category of the community worker. Kenya Kwanza has 8 women nominees to the Senate, all of them from UDA. They are Veronica Miners, Soipan Tuya, Mirjan Abdul, Gloria Orwoba, Joyce Korir, Karen Nyamu, Paris Tobiko, and Maureen Mutinde. Kenya Kwanza's youth nominee to Senate are Rafael Mwinzangu, while George Mbugwa is the coalition's nominee to Senate to represent persons living with disabilities. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance has picked former Speaker Kenneth Marende to contest for the position of the Speaker of the National Assembly. Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni further says that they have picked Dadaab MP-elect Farah Maalim, who will deputize him. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has also been picked by the Azimio team to vie for the Senate Speaker's position. Azimio la Umoja overturned the Wiper Party's decision that has advised Kalonzo not to vie for the seat.
I've had our Azimio PG this morning running into afternoon, and we had the privilege of having our principals with us, and we have resolved as Azimio Coalition Group that we have Mheshimiwa Kenneth Marende as our candidate for the speakership of the National Assembly to be deputized by Mheshimiwa Farah Maalim. We have also resolved that we'll have His Excellency the former Vice President Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka as our speaker candidate for the Senate, and to be deputized by Mheshimiwa Senator Manzayo Stewart kutoka Kilifi. Na tumekubaliana kwamba sisi tutakuwa kule kufanya yale yanatakana na kuwa pamoja na wao. They are useful for the assemblies and they are also useful for this country.
Meanwhile, President-elect William Ruto has settled on Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula and former Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi as candidates for the National Assembly Speaker and Senate Speaker, respectively. In a meeting, the Kenya Kwanza Alliance also confirmed Gladys Bos-Sholei as their candidate for the National Deputy Speaker and Kathuri Murungi as the Senate Deputy Speaker. Following the move, Wetangula has resigned from the senator position as required by law. That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
The following takes place between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
It is already something. It's raining here and there, and we're going to see traffic picking up as we go towards 7 o'clock. We're seeing traffic that's building up on the Thika Superhighway, a little bit here and there coming out of Westlands, but nothing too bad at the moment. Let's keep an eye on things through this Thursday morning. Talk to us, SpiceFM KE on Twitter, and keep things moving.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power.
8 minutes after
Eric.
6. Good morning, and how are you doing? Happy Thursday. It's the 8th day of September 2022. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Did you say it's the 18th?
8th.
Oh, 8th, okay.
You wanted to be the 18th?
No, it's not, because I knew it's not the 18th, because it's my mama's birthday.
We can make it.
Mm-hmm.
It can be 18th from this day till the end of the month. City.
Yes.
How you doing?
Fine.
You well?
Yes.
Yeah. This cold,
How
my
are
friend.
Me,
Freezing.
finally, I have agreed. It is cold. I've agreed.
You know,
Yesterday, at some point about 3-4
You have accepted and you have agreed.
I've accepted and I have agreed. I've accepted the results. I've accepted. It is cold. It was about 9 degrees at about 4 p.m. yesterday, and I said, what is this? Tropics. We live in the tropics, man.
Where?
You know, there's a store where I keep my complaints. I exhausted them.
Now allow me to do it for you.
So now other people can draw on their own store. So when I was saying it was cold,
No, it wasn't
now
cold.
you see what I was saying.
Where?
Don't joke, Wana.
Look at people wearing ski jackets, even outside.
It's cold. It is really, really cold. Now, can you imagine the people in Limuru?
Limuru.
Start here. Limuru.
Limuru just here. You know, it is foggy throughout. It's foggy in the morning. It's foggy at lunchtime. It's foggy in the afternoon.
day.
It is essentially just foggy.
Hey, that life.
And that's not someone's nickname.
You know, you don't want to be in Limuru at 3 p.m.
It's dark.
Hey.
It's cold. Darkness, you know, you will never
And
want
then
to touch.
it's rainy.
Hey.
And I think we're getting to that point where the drizzle is just happening throughout. The Kenya Met told us yesterday that there's a shift. And that's where the rains are now coming from.
Shift from what?
I beg, they spoke one big English. My brain refused to connect. I just said it's okay.
Let me explain how I think I understand it. When you say shift, it means that weather, which was belonging to another place,
Has
come
gone
this
there.
has come this side. So that's
And
what they're
late,
saying.
and late in the day.
Yes.
Okay. So essentially, Alaska is in Nairobi.
Yes.
India.
And our weather has gone somewhere. In fact, a friend of mine who is in Los Angeles has just actually shared a photo, a weather-related sign on the Kim Sing Theatre in downtown LA on September 7th, yesterday, right? The sign reads, Satan called, he wants his weather back.
Ile moto joto.
Yes.
Acha nikwambie hiyo story kubwa. The Kenya Met has offered an explanation. They've said, the cold weather is a result of coupling of wet conditions with influx of cold winds from southern Africa. So blame the South Africans.
No.
Coupling
with the cold influx of the what again?
Cold winds. Coupling together with influx of cold winds from southern Africa. But they've predicted warmer conditions going into the weekend. So from tomorrow, you can feel that, sun on your back kind of thing. They divulged that the current rains are due to shifting of the humid Congo air mass towards Eastern Africa. Nisikia?
Yeah.
The rains will continue over the western parts of the country and a few places in the southern highlands.
So the Congo air mass has shifted.
And the southern coupling has influxed.
My friend, where?
I told you it was big English.
So the cold southern Congo winds.
No, please.
Have influxed with the coupling.
In the eastern coupling.
With the coupling of the East African humanoid.
Yes. And then the result is?
Coupling.
Baridi.
Rain. Okay. So it just can't be cold unless there's coupling.
No, please. An influx.
An influx.
You can't forget the
And
influx.
then please don't forget the cold winds.
And then you have to add Congo and southern Africa.
So when they meet in the middle.
Tuko. Garrett?
This climate change thing is real, huh?
I'm telling you. Where?
All right.
Anyway, so welcome to the conversation. We said we'll be quite on rights on this issue of Kenyans going to work in the Middle Eastern countries and the kind of treatment that they get, those that get the bad treatment. So today we want to have a conversation with one of the agents who's involved in this, let's call it business. Violet Karanu, a director of J Horizons Agency, will be with us at 8 a.m. She'll tell us, so how exactly do you go through this entire recruitment and placement process? What the laws say, how do you deal with the Saudi authorities, how do you deal with your clients in Saudi Arabia, how do you deal with clients in Kenya? All those questions we'll be asking her. So make sure that you keep it here for that conversation at that time. All right? Right. Tell us about COVID.
All right, let me tell you what's happening in the country. 16 new people tested positive from a sample size of 1,048. And in the last 24 hours, that gives Kenya now a positivity rate of 1.5%. 12 cases are Kenyans, while 4 are foreigners. Still looking at low numbers with that. So that's all right. We're still at that 611 million COVID cases around the world, inching closer to 612 million, likely to topple that over in a short period of time. But in terms of numbers that are being realized worldwide, nothing earth-shattering. Now, the New York City, New York City, which is said to have maybe 3-4 times the GDP of some African countries, they've, after 28 months, ended their mask mandate on public transport. It's been on for 2 years and 4 months, and they've now said masks will no longer be required in airports and ride-share vehicles. According to Governor Kathy Hochul, she said they introduced the mandate in April 2020 as the virus was spreading throughout New York City, and now after wearing masks will be optional, citing recent guidance from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And she said, look, we have to restore normalcy to our lives. Masks are encouraged, but they're optional. She said that New York is in a far stronger position as infections and hospitalizations have fallen sharply. She says it's always been a visible reminder that everything is not normal, and it was there for the right reason. It protected health, and now we're in a far different place, so you can get rid of that. This issue, if we're now moving on swiftly, of an inhalable needle-free COVID-19 vaccine has taken the world by storm. Now, it would appear as though 7th of September announcements were made. Not really. There have been months and months of research that has gone into this, and India and China now are at the forefront of a new approach to COVID-19 vaccination. Remember, we talked about the inhalable option, which was just a booster shot, but now they're looking at a 1 squirt in the nose and another inhaled through the mouth as options for full vaccination.
Nice.
According to Bharat Biotech's in India, regulators, they said that it's an option for folks who have not been vaccinated, and it'll strengthen the collective fight against the virus. It's not clear how the nasal version works, but they said that they've immediately released the results of its studies and say the new option will soon roll out.
There have been nasal sprays.
There have.
No, they are actually even in existence.
Yes.
And some even came up with nasal sprays that dealt with some of these more virulent strains of COVID. You ask how it is the nasal spray works? How does oxygen work when you breathe it in? I think it uses the same principle.
Possibly.
But what I like about this, it means the fight against COVID didn't end. Those who are at the forefront of this fight have continued to look for ways and means of ensuring that they actually defeat this particular virus completely.
Very true.
Yes.
And this is what we see. And I really, really like the fact that it has come up from India and China. I really like this. I really do.
That's what you're seeing. It's not getting a lot of
it's not getting a lot of attention.
No, it isn't.
It is massive in terms of what it's going to be able to do.
Big thing.
Yeah.
It is, but also remember that those two countries combined represent what?
2 billion
2
people.
billion people in terms of population. Huge chunk of the scientific research that's done on the globe.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. 18 after 6, we are live streaming the show, like we always do on YouTube and Facebook. If you're online, let us know where you are breathing in the cold from. Or if you're in some of the hot parts of the world, let us know as well what kind of temperatures you're facing. Ndu will give us the weather forecasts shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I like listening to you guys. You're the default radio station in my car in the morning. Even the children listen to you guys.
I agree Parliament has failed this country. And I will say it again. We have not done what we should have done.
We know in this country, the Kenya prison sector is one of the most underfunded sector.
The way it is being done and the way we're calling it Huduma Number Msema Kweli is because all records will be there. You know, there are people who are now billionaires with no history as to how they got all these assets.
Yes.
Anything that the president does that is not in accord with the Constitution is an illegal act. You know, he shouldn't be doing it, and he should be sitting here and trying to sort of guise it up. I totally believe live transmission of results and allowing Kenyans to be able to view all these results. I believe that it will be impossible to steal elections.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's 14 this morning. We will look at dropping temperatures in Nairobi. It's raining as well. We'll only just go to highs of 20 today. Rain showers at 15 in Nakuru, highs of 22 and lows of 14. It's raining as well in Nyeri at 13, highs of 18 and lows of 13. The influx is affecting Eldoret as well. It's 13 degrees. It's raining. It'll go to highs of just 22. And we're looking at rain happening in Mombasa as well, going to highs of 28 and lows of 21. You guessed it. It's raining in Malindi at 23. Highs of 28 today. Kisumu is none the wiser. It's raining here. 18, highs of 27. 27 will be the high in Kakamega, where it is raining as well. All right. Rain showers in Kampala, highs of 25. Cloudy conditions leading to rain in Tanzania. Dar es Salaam specifically, we'll see highs of 29 and lows of 20. Mostly cloudy conditions in Johannesburg, highs of 24 and lows of 11. And the rain is still coming down in Lagos at 25, highs of 29. Mostly cloudy conditions at 23. In Kinshasa, highs of 29, down to lows of 23. Looking out into Beijing, where it looks as it's the only place where the sun is shining today. It is shiny into afternoon Thursday. We'll see highs of 33 and lows of 18. Cloudy conditions in Paris at 16, highs of 22, and London is raining at 15, highs of 20 and lows of 14. Mostly clear Wednesday night in New York at 21, highs of 23 and lows of 18.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Awake, right?
Indeed. Today is too cold. Abdul Abubakar says, look, a situation room. I'm locked in. Now, the thing is, are you locked in your house because it's too cold? Or are you locked into the situation room? If anyway you're locked, it's good. You're tuned in from DOD Hurlingham in Nairobi. Martin one day tuned in from Gigiri. Good morning, hearing you from Nakuru. That's our Ketch, Wellington. And good morning, my big team, Newton. We see you in Ruai, Florida. Good morning, tuned in. That's where Elizabeth Muli is. And Robertson Boko is tuning from Mombasa. Ashley is in Machakos this morning. Gidima Munyu is where Helen Juguna is, and she's here with us. Henry Ochoki is tuned in as well. Peter Wagongo says, good morning, Ndu, Eric and CT. Receive greetings from the city centre. Have you received?
We have received them.
We have received.
Very good. Now, Andrew Franklin is feeling a little bit holy this morning. And he says, good morning from a wet and cold Bernard Estate in the Evangelical Republic of Kenya. Jesus, take the wheel, he says. Okay, Bernard. Karanja has some words of encouragement today. He says the New International Version 2011 of Mark 11:24 says, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Sawa. It will be yours. Many more people online this morning. Cheer Titus says, good morning, falling from Drive in Nairobi. Greetings to my people of Kapcherop. Mesalimiwa. Clyde Nanja Kululu says he's tuned in from Roiro. Edwin Machabe is tuned in from Nyamira. Simon tuned and says, I'm Maloa from Magarini. Where's Magarini?
Magarini is Kilifi.
In Kilifi. He says, kindly, kujeni huku, we don't need blankets. All right. Good morning, Rachel. We see you. Rashbir, Opundo, Juma, Walter, everybody. Karibuni sana. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Welcome, City. Proverb.
Chad.
We've gone back to Chad. Okay.
No, you go up, then you come down, then you go down. Then you come up, then in the middle.
Then you go west.
Like that. It's just movement.
Ni sawa sawa.
The shepherd of a herd of toads must be very patient with his rod.
Toads are herded. I'm just asking.
With a rod.
Clearly. Toads, they're herded.
If you are in the kingdom of Narnia.
Yeah, that was a really good book, though. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Sorry.
Yes. You would understand that anything is possible. Yes.
It is the shepherd of toads.
Can you imagine many toads in a herd? Where are we going? To look for.
Must be very patient with your rod.
Telling you.
Because
this one is hopping here, this one is hopping here. Stay here.
And then it speaks back to you and tells you, bragga.
Okay.
Say it again, the proverb.
The shepherd of a herd of toads must be very patient with his rod.
So, the president of Kenya must be patient.
In fact, I would actually argue that the listener of a proverb that has toads in it must also be very patient.
I'm telling you, where are they going with this one? A proverb with a herd of toads.
In Chad. Hey, okay. So let's look at the papers, right? www.standardmedia.co.ke or get the physical copy of the Standard newspaper. This is available across the country and across the region. 60 bob in Kenya. There's also something else that's happening online. Tonight, between 6 and 8 p.m. on our Twitter handle, we'll be hosting a Twitter space, having a conversation about what changes you'd like to see with a new government. It's basically discussing, so what would people like to see with the fifth administration? Dear Mr. President is the Twitter space that will be hosted this evening from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. by the Standard. Okay. What's on the front pages?
All right, we're looking at the front page of the Standard today. Uhuru to Azimio, unite or perish. He did give that speech yesterday as he was talking to, stakeholders within the Azimio coalition. President Uhuru Kenyatta, in a first meeting with his party leaders, says he will hand over power without a problem and remain loyal to his coalition and its leader, Raila Odinga. He also warned MPs against being bought by the new government and to stand with Kenyans. And the quote is, "I am not saying this because I hate anybody. What I want us to show each other is really whether we are in Azimio." He says, "I will hand over power because it's my constitutional duty. I will become a citizen, but my leader is Baba." The last fight is what is on the front page of The Nation. Showdown, a high-stakes battle is set to unravel in Nairobi this afternoon. So Ednah, it is this afternoon, 2 o'clock. As President Uhuru Kenyatta handed a shock defeat at the polls and at the Supreme Court by his deputy William Ruto after supporting Raila Odinga's bid, moves to grab the leadership of the National Assembly and the Senate from the rolling Kenya Kwanza juggernaut by pushing Marende and Kalonzo to the ballot. So that's what's on the front page of The Nation. Look into more stories.
The Star?
Right. How grit and strategy got DP Ruto to State House. Okay. That's the headline. The headline in The Nation, I think you have.
Could you please give us the headline in the East African?
Yes, the headline in the East African is Supreme Anxiety. Now, that now is history. It was news on Monday. It was news on Sunday. It was news on Saturday. Now it's history. However, there's a bit of interesting stories emanating from Zimbabwe. Okay? And it relates to the First Lady of Zimbabwe, a lady by the name of Auxilia Mnangagwa. And they say the First Lady seemed to be walking in the footsteps of an, in quote, Gucci Grace Mugabe.
She's also Gucciing.
It would appear
the crocodile's wife.
The crocodile's wife, Mrs. Crocodile, seems to understand that Gucci is eternal. Yes, so there's that little detail. But we will talk more about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Business Daily, no politics whatsoever except politics that involves commerce.
Right.
Energy Ministry risks 11 billion claim over illegal diesel taxes. That's the headline. KRA has been collecting 5 shillings and 40 cents a litre levy despite order slashing charges. Details will be provided later. And then CMA grills Kakuzi board on UK money transfers. Right.
The Star.
The Star has this to say. Raila Ruto battle for control of parliament as MPs elect speakers.
Today,
the dang.
It is that showdown. 10.
And they also say President-elect faces delicate balancing act in sharing out jobs.
10.
Yes.
Let me give you some of those details, or you want us to not do that now?
No, go ahead and give us the details.
Ruto camp burns the midnight oil ahead of the House Speaker's contest. Kenya Kwanza said it has 36 senators elect and 109 MPs elect and will lobby to clinch seats. Wetangula resigns as Bungoma senator ahead of vote on the National Assembly Speaker. He had to do that, didn't he?
Yep.
All right. The Kenya Kwanza Alliance, led by President-elect William Ruto, is confident it will clinch the Speaker's position in the National Assembly and Senate. The Alliance had a parliamentary group meeting at the Deputy President's official residence in Karen, Nairobi yesterday, where they resolved to back outgoing Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula as Speaker of the National Assembly and former Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi for Senate. Before the meeting, Wetangula resigned his senatorial position to qualify to seek the Speaker position. Garissa Township MP Aiden Dwale said Kenya Kwanza had 37 senators, but in the absence of Wetangula, who had resigned, they will have 36 elected against 32 for President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Raila Odinga-led Azimio La Umoja won Kenya. We will lobby the whole night and in the morning, and the victory of the two speakers will be resounding, he said. The parliamentary group meeting was agreed to support Uasin Gishu woman rep Gladys Sholay and Meru Senator Kadhuri Murungi for the Nairobi Assembly and Senate Deputy Speaker positions respectively.
National Assembly.
I beg your pardon, for the National Assembly and Senate Deputy Speaker positions respectively. That's what it says. The meeting chaired by the president-elect began at 9 p.m. and ran up to 3 p.m. It resolved to have all the Kenya Kwanza elected members attend the bicameral parliament early in the morning for the vote and will begin immediately after they take the oath of office. The MPs are expected to be sworn in to a 5-year term and will end in August 2027 before they go ahead to vote for the speakers and their deputies. According to Duale, we are confident of the numbers. We already have 191 MPs of the National Assembly elected and nominated, and we have Azimios, and we have some Azimio MPs who have also indicated that they will join us. About 30 have indicated that we will confirm their numbers after the vote. He says that while Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah and Elgeyo Marakwet Senator-elect Kipchumba Murkomen, who were slated to be the majority leader for the National Assembly and the Senate respectively, will be the chief agents assisted by Senator for Kericho, Aaron Cheriot.
This one is going to be an interesting one. You would think that they would have a conversation about, if we have the numbers on this side and you have the numbers on the other side, how can we strike a deal? Nothing of the sort. Anyway, let's take a quick break. 28-7. Let's see how the roads are looking like, and then we look at the stories in the papers. Good morning, and remember, it's County 49 on Showmax. Showmax is not, it's actually affordable. It's only 760
shillings at very least. 760 shillings per month, and you have access to all this great programming. Action, guns, shooting,
car chases,
Izo,
kidnapping,
and mandamano.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Not much in terms of traffic this morning happening at the moment. We have some traffic then going towards the Pangani underpass, and that is likely to build up. Look, it's a boom situation because by 7 you're going to see Thika Road absolutely crazy. If you haven't left, now would be the time to do so. But we're asking you to do so really carefully because the roads are very slippery. Coming out of Westlands, James Gishoro yet to pack up, but because of what we've been seeing in the last few days, likely that we will see some traffic building up here. Coming into the CBD is probably where you see the most of it right now. And Jogo Road is doing that pitter-patter of traffic as you get towards the City Stadium roundabout. Out towards Kamkunji is also where it's building up. And let's look on this other side of the city where there's traffic then going towards Outer Ring, but nothing to worry about just now. It is a time to leave. If you haven't, you might have to wait a little longer thereafter. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this morning.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay, 67. The list of nominated members to the National Assembly and the Senate is out, gazetted by the IEBC as required by law yesterday. And we have seen some people who were sitting members of parliament elected in the previous parliament now nominated to this one. For example, the chairman of ODM, John Mbadi, and former woman rep of Muranga, Sabina Chege, are among the 12 nominated MPs gazetted by the IEBC. Former Uasin Gishu Senator Margaret Kamar, UDA Secretary General Veronica Maina, former Narok woman rep Soipan Tuya, ODM Elections Board Chairperson Catherine Muma are among the 20 leaders nominated to the Senate. The names of the 32 nominated leaders are contained in a Gazette notice published yesterday by Wafula Chebukati, the chairman of the IEBC. One nominee to the National Assembly from Wiper will, however, have to wait longer to take up this office because there's a pending court case. IEBC chairperson said the Wiper Democratic Movement Party was not allocated its share of one nominated MP slot due to an interim court order restraining the commission from allocating the seat. UDA has 5 nominated members in the National Assembly. That's Bishop Jackson Kosgei, Teresia Mwangi, Abdul Sirat Khalif Ali, Dorothy Ikiara, and Joseph Iraya. ODM has former Suba South MP John Badi, former nominated Nyamira MCA Irene Mayaka, and Umul Khair Harun Mohammed. Former Muranga Woman Rep Sabina Shege is the only nominee from Jubilee Party. Joseph Hamisi Denar is the ANC nominee, and UDM has Suleka Hubale Harun. In the Senate, UDA got the majority of slots. Nominated seats include the UDA Secretary General Veronica Maina, former Narok Woman Rep Soipan Tuya, former Bomet Woman Rep Joyce Korir, former Kajiado East MP Peris Tobiko, governance expert Gloria Orwoba, city politician Karen Nyamo, Miraj Abdullahi Abdirahman, and Maureen Mutinda. Those are the ones that got in from from the UDA. ODM has 5 nominees to Senate, who are the Elections Board Chairperson Catherine Muma, ODM Women League President Beth Siengo, Beatrice Oyomo, Hamida Kibwana, Betty Montet. Jubilee has former Wasingishu Senator Margaret Kamar, and Wiper has the former Lamu Woman Rep Shakila Abdallah, who is the Secretary General of the party. In terms of the youth positions, there are 2 youth slots. ODM got 1, Hezina Lemalatian, the lady that we interviewed here last year. Was it earlier this year?
Early this year.
So earlier this year from Samburu. And UDA has Raphael Mwinzagu. When it comes to persons with disability in the Senate, ODM has Crystal Asige. She's a musician. And UDA had George Bogwa. Nominees. See, those lists are actually done before the election and lodged with the IEBC. So there's no lobbying that takes place. Now, depending on the number of MPs that you actually get elected into, your party gets into the National Assembly, that determines the number of slots that as a party you can nominate. So you can clearly see that the big parties in the National Assembly and the Senate are UDA and ODM. And that's why they're getting the lion's share of the nominees. And then Jubilee gets 1-1. ANC gets 1-1.
They don't come out empty-handed.
Someone gets something.
You get something. But something I want to ask. If, say, I am senator, stretch your imagination wildly.
Yes.
And I resign so that I can vie for the position of speaker.
Yes.
If I don't make it, can I take back my job?
You can go back to the people, because once you've resigned,
that's it.
That's it.
An election is going to be held.
Yes. The person who's going to be elected as the Senate Speaker today, first order of business will be to declare writs for Bungoma. Take them to the IEBC. So then the IEBC can start preparing a by-election for Bungoma.
Okay. You know, this position of Speaker, unbeknownst to many, is a very powerful position.
Especially the National Assembly.
Very, very, very powerful.
Very.
Number
2 in the order of hierarchy.
Yes.
Yes. It's a very powerful position. And also, if you look at, if let's say, so Veronica Maina, the Secretary General of UDA, was of course top of the list for UDA nominees to Senate. All right, UDA has won the presidency. If President Ruto decides to take Veronica Maina into his cabinet, which I see as a possibility, so that's nomination slot will be empty.
Be open.
The person who was below in that list gets like a chance. There's still a chance that's open.
So essentially, as one person ascends, a position is created.
Is created.
You know, there's actually no place where this plays out more than the military. The hierarchy and the strict structure that they have, when people exit, essentially what you're doing is you're creating space.
Yes.
When people reach that mandatory age that is allowable for a certain position and they exit, they create space. People can then move up. Isn't it a wonderful thing?
Very.
It is.
Especially when it's adhered to.
It is wonderfully wonderful. Wonderfully wonderful. Tell us that story of, there was a story, a Business Daily story about we've been paying 5 bob and we should not have been paying.
Right. Let me just read the story. This is a story by a gentleman by the name of John Mutua. Okay. The Ministry of Energy risks is written 11 billion now. It's an 11 billion refund claim from motorists after the taxman continued to collect higher levies on diesel 11 months after a law raising the fees was quashed. 11 months ago, certain levies were quashed, but KRA kept collecting, and I continue. The Kenya Revenue Authority has been collecting the Petroleum Development Levy, PDL, at a rate of 5 shillings and 40 cents per litre on diesel consumed despite Parliament directing the ministry to revoke a legal notice in October last year that had increased the same. Okay? The revocation should have caused the taxman to revert to the previous rate of 0 Kenya shillings 0.40 per litre. However, insiders, I'm reading, I will explain what I'm reading later. Insiders at KRA, the principal collector of all government levies and taxes, said the agency went on collecting the...
Turn the page.
The levy at the higher rate after it received guidance from the Ministry of Energy, but has now been left with the legal nightmare since the ministry failed to follow through on its end to legalize the tax by issuing a new gazette notice. Taxman talks to ministry. Ministry says, okay, continue taxing. Ministry has duty to gazette the said agreement. Ministry clearly doesn't arrive at this. So, guess who's left with the baby and the bathwater?
Taxman.
All together.
But this story starts with Parliament directing the executive to halt implementation of this levy. I'd like to know in what state the directive came.
I am also wondering, because was it a law that they created? Because Parliament can't create a law. And if that law, what law is it?
11 months, you blah, blah, blah. Just go on. Because I remember, maybe this is looking at that. Remember the time there was the Gladys Wanga committee and a whole conversation about the rising fuel prices.
Right.
And them summoning everybody to ask, where is the subsidy money?
Yes.
Did they pass... So if it was just a motion, a motion is a suggestion. Or did they actually amend the piece of regulation that was bringing in that levy? That would be interesting to find out because, okay, you go on. Have you found that detail? We're giving you time to,
yes,
to get the details of this.
According to this article, the matter that Parliament raised was gazetted, okay? So the argument now seems to be, why did KRA go against what was actually gazetted? But this matter, according to this writer, when they went to KRA said, please refer this matter to the relevant ministry, okay? Because we do things on instruction. Okay, that's me adding. That is not in the article here. But however, this is what they said. The authorities collects PDL as an agent of the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining in accordance with the Petroleum Development Fund Act and has provided in the various legal notices over time. That is, insiders at KRA said, adding that the explanation would apportion blame to the ministry and it didn't want to point fingers. Petroleum Cabinet Secretary John Munyes and Solicitor General Kenneth Ogeto did not respond to queries, while Petroleum Principal Secretary Andrew Kamau said he is not aware of the matter. EPRA said it has issued a corrigendum, that one.
Yes.
To correct, it's an addendum with a corri, to correct the issue, but the Business Daily has confirmed that it never ended up in a new gazette notice as required by law.
Was the revocation actually implemented? Because I'm looking back into the stories about September last year. The report by the Gladys Wanga Finance Committee, Kenyans are a step away from enjoying lower fuel prices following recommendations by MPs to slash the burdening taxes nearly by half. The Finance Committee of the National Assembly recommended the cuts in a report tabled on Tuesday. Gladys Wanga team had proposed to reduce the petroleum development levy charged on each litre of super petrol and diesel from 540 to 290. MPs have consequently proposed the revocation of the petroleum development levy order. They have proposed the revocation of the petroleum development levy order 2020, which provides for the levy. The committee is asking the plenary to amend the Petroleum Development Fund Act 1991. MPs have also recommended the value-added tax charged on petroleum products be reduced. All those things were in the report that was tabled to Parliament. Now, there's no story that shows what happened. 2nd November, a story in The Nation says, Parliament has published a petroleum products tax amendment bill setting in motion efforts to lower the prices of fuel. The objective of this bill is to review taxes and levies on petroleum with a view of making the products cheaper. That was just published. Whether it was passed, not yet. The Petroleum Products Taxes and Levies Amendment Bill is sponsored by the Finance and Planning Committee, chaired by Gladys Wanga. In its report, the committee said the Treasury abused the Petroleum Development Fund by supporting payments to SGR in the breach of law. The bill has been published, she said. It's awaiting its first reading after recess when it matures. That this bill actually went ahead and got approval. I don't see it.
If you read it further, what you're going to find, there was a back and forth, which even involved the minister. And remember, the ministry had actually published a notice. The issue here is Parliament went and told them, forget this. There wasn't enough public participation in this. So we are not going to allow this thing to carry on. If I quote what it is that the EPRA Director General Daniel Kipto said, he said, yes, we are aware that the legal notice was revoked. We did a corrigendum to correct the issue. Okay?
This is EPRA now.
Yes. The problem, as I see it, with this matter, is I don't think KRA did anything illegal or anything wrong. No. KRA follows instructions.
Yeah, and also gazetted.
Yes.
If there was no gazettement revoking the 5 shillings and 40 cents collection of the Petroleum Development Levy, everything else is hot air, chasing wild goods chase.
Everything, even those influx winds.
Yes.
Indeed.
But this article doesn't help with clarifying
It's not
this
saying
No, it's
on
not.
this date Parliament actually passed the amendment bill for the revocation. On this date it was signed by the President. On this date it was gazetted. It doesn't say that.
Yeah,
So I'm not
we
sure
already told
what we're
that,
talking about.
Munyez said that the legal notice was dated October 21st, 2021. That one we are told. That's it.
And what was the legal notice saying?
The legal notice is the Petroleum Development Amendment Order. It was revoked, according to him, on 2021, and the legal notice was dated October 21st, 2021.
And then they issued a corrigendum.
Corrigendum. Now that corrigendum
really does the
it
thing.
It really coruscated the
It
whole
is the
issue.
one. That's the problem. I think that's where our problem lies.
I think so.
Corrigendum. Yes.
That's when you have an agenda, an addendum in the corridors.
In the corridors. And it's correlated.
Yes.
Unions,
Yeah.
this is interesting, want junior high domiciled in day schools. Remember, the opposite was supposed to happen.
Junior high.
Junior high. So remember now we're going from class 6 and then we're going into JSS,
Yes.
right? For 3 years, and then you go into SSS for another 3 years. 2 teachers' unions have asked the government to reconsider. Remember, it's already been a decision. It's already been done. This is where we're going. The decision to use boarding secondary schools for junior high, citing the tender age of the transitioning learners.
Okay.
The Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers and the Kenya National Union of Teachers want the government to domicile junior secondary in day schools. So if you're going into junior secondary, they're asking that we insist they be boarding schools. Go, come home.
Day.
Yes, the unions.
Day schools.
Day schools, yes.
Yes.
Go, come home. The union said learners in this level may not get along well with those in Form 1 to 4 under the current 844 system. owing to the age difference. So right now you have 12-year-olds so you have 10 years old, 11-year-old, then at 12 is where they'll be going into JSS, essentially, isn't it? Learners who will be transitioning to grade 7, the first class of the junior secondary, have been selecting their preferred schools, with the two unions raising concerns that most of the available slots are in boarding institutions. Kupet's Executive Secretary Sabala Yenyi, speaking in Mbale Town, Vihiga County, said the proposal to domicile junior secondary in day schools only would help ease the strain on existing facilities. Speaking separately, the Kenya National Union of Teachers Executive Secretary Maurice Chalenga agreed with his Kupet counterpart, arguing that the minors should only move to day schools. Inyani said, in January, we expect junior secondary classes to begin. We are concerned that we don't have enough facilities. We know that some schools are building at the moment, but they just will not be enough. The children who are expected to transition to junior secondary and who will join the current secondary schools will not be able to cope with the rest due to the big age difference. He added that allowing the young learners to join the older ones could lead to bullying and other social issues. The more than 1.28 million learners who are expected to join junior secondary in January next year will compete for limited slots in top schools. An almost equal number of learners who are under the 844 will join Form 1 at the same time. So remember, we're going into the last cohort is now joining junior secondary. You have KCPE, which is still happening this year, also doing what? Joining high school. And the only institutions available are boarding at the secondary level.
Well, also, they're day schools.
They're day schools. And this is what they're saying, that let all the JSS for now, as they're applying, go to day schools.
Just all the day schools.
Exactly.
Only.
Choose day schools only. So it looks like it might cause a bit of a problem.
I get confused with this conversation because I thought I even had CS Magoha encouraging parents to allow the children to actually go to the nearest day school for junior secondary.
Even beyond that, he said, if the school they are currently in
can accommodate
them, don't even apply. Let them just continue, because of this same reason, we just do not have enough in terms of facilities. It's not enough. So now you're going to have JSS plus the current Form 1s to 4 competing for the same available space. And it's going to cause a problem. So now the unions are saying, look, we've got a solution. Just allow them to go to day schools. And they've also added another reason to that they're looking at the tender age as well.
You know, it's just talking about going to day schools does not solve the issue. Because you remember, what's the name of the gentleman that we hosted here? We were talking about the disparities in our education system, especially in secondary school.
What's his name? The educationist.
Manyasa.
Yes.
Dr. Manyasa.
When Dr. Manyasa was here, and in fact they even released a report, which I looked at in great detail. The disparities in terms of boarding schools that we have and the day schools that we have, majority of the sub-county schools are day schools. Majority of our sub-county schools, majority of the students in Kenya actually go to the sub-county schools, which are the day schools. So even as the unions are talking, the unions are also just far removed from reality.
This is politics, really.
Yes.
They are wading into a situation by muddying it.
They're just
they're not making it any better.
They are not adding value.
Does it not stand to reason, given the facts of the matter, that the day schools were always going to play a very key role in this process of transition? Because that's where the bulk of our students go to.
Yes.
Yes.
What we should be doing is actually spending a lot of time on, and this is one of the questions we had done a lot of background with this with Dr. Manyasi, just because at the presidential debate, it's one of the questions we wanted to ask. It's just that we run out of time, because the president-elect actually in his manifesto, remember he signed a charter with the education stakeholders.
He did.
And he talked about improving, really working hard to improve the situation, the education situation across the country, and especially uplifting the day schools. If you look at the way they are, there's no policy at all that talks about categorization of schools, first of all, of national, sub-county, county, blah, 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 blah. And if you look at the distribution of students in the school system in the country, a majority of them are in the sub-county schools. 67% of teachers in sub-county schools are employed by TSC, meaning 33% are actually employed by parents and BOMs. The number of students who are in sub-county schools, these are the day secondary schools, is actually higher. So we need an entire rethink and reorganization of this.
Honestly.
And saying, so obviously the day schools are close to people's homes. So can we just say that those ones become the junior secondary schools, and then the high schools, senior secondary schools, which now become there are senior secondary schools that will be focusing on sciences and senior secondary schools that will be focusing on the arts. We've got to rework the whole thing.
And I think that's the thing. There seems to be a
stop talking about them
reluctance.
being national and
it
county.
cannot be. There's a reluctance towards shifting things. And I think if you're going to deal with a changeover in your curriculum, then you're going to have to deal with an overhaul in some places, especially since infrastructure is an issue. It is an issue, let's just be honest, in terms of, because there was a whole conundrum of, okay, so who goes where? How are you going to do what? It is about time you say, look, let's shift things about. It's going to be uncomfortable in the short term, but then over time you're going to see that it's going to get better. Absolutely. Yep. The senior secondary facilities, you have those, they're already there. They're already available.
Yep.
If you're insisting that they board, then leave them as just so. If
as
you
senior secondary.
As senior secondary, you have many schools currently, private schools, who are using the resources that they have to then put up facilities that will serve as JSS, as junior secondary. Allow them to do that and keep them as day schools, and know that that will be your MO going forward. That until you get to the last 3 years of a lower education, which would be your SSS, nobody boards. And let it be that way so that you know what you're doing, because this mess is just too much. Let everybody know.
58% of schools in Kenya are day schools.
So
only 42% of schools in Kenya, public
boarding.
schools in Kenya, are boarding.
And now we're trying to say that this 1.28, we are going to now push them into that same system where already you have a lack. It won't work. Anybody can look at it and see it will not work.
You know, when the ministry talked about us changing to this new system, remember the back and forth, questions were asked. It is the reason why the drafters of our 2010 constitution put in public participation. You see, public participation also allows you to pilot. You know, when the 844 system was put into play, there was talk of piloting it. In fact, study groups within regions per subject that was being taught in secondary schools came together to talk and agree on the way forward. People, they didn't involve head teachers, they involved teachers, like say if you're head of a department. Problem was, just as they had gotten into it and they were about to bring into being their findings, we're told, implement. I said,
but we haven't.
But you know, it's going to be a bit tricky if you just implement. We do need to. And the next thing that
we'll be building bridges as we near the river.
Yes, we told no. We've got this. In fact, we've already published books. So I said, as someone who taught the English language, I said, are we going to teach something different from what we've been teaching? Because English is just English. Okay? And the things you need the students to understand, same thing. Anyway, it looks like we've gone full circle. We're right there again.
Proper. Maybe we can even continue this conversation for a bit in the next hour. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
The news at the top of the hour on Vibes Radio.
I am Stephanie Wangari. A showdown is expected today at the 13th Parliament after members of the Senate and the National Assembly take their oath of office. Their first order of business will be to select new speakers and deputy speakers of their respective houses. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance has nominated former Speaker Kenneth Marende for the Speaker position of the National Assembly, deputized by Dadaab MP-elect Farah Maalim, while leader Kalonzo Musyoka has also been picked by the Azimio team to vie for the Senate Speaker's position.
We have had our Azimio PG this morning running into afternoon, and we had the privilege of having our principals with us, and we have resolved as Azimio Coalition Group that we have Mheshimiwa Kenneth Marende as our candidate for the speakership of the National Assembly to be deputized by Mheshimiwa Farah Marim. We have also resolved that we'll have His Excellency the former Vice President Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka as our speaker candidate for the Senate, and to be deputized by Mheshimiwa Senator Manzayo Stewart kutoka Kilifi. Na tumekubaliana kwamba sisi tutakuwa kule kufanya yale yanatakana na kuwa pamoja na wao. They are useful for the assemblies and they are also useful for this country.
Meanwhile, President-elect William Ruto has settled on Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula and former Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi as candidates for the National Assembly Speaker and Senate Speaker, respectively. The Kenya Kwanza Alliance has also confirmed Gladys Boss Sholei as their candidate for the National Assembly Deputy Speaker and Kathuri Murungi as their Senate Deputy Speaker.
We consulted with some of the party leaders and leaders in our alliance. We settled on Moses Wetangula for the Speaker of the National Assembly. For Senate, we are recommending Amason Jeffa King. We also, after consultations, we are presenting to you Lady Boss Sholei. We are presenting Kathuri Murungi from Meru County as a deputy speaker for the Senate.
At the National Assembly, Kenya Kwanza has 179 seats, while the Azimio la Umoja has 158 seats. In Senate, Kenya Kwanza has 35 seats and Azimio la Umoja 35 seats. President-elect William Ruto says he thinks outgoing head of state Uhuru Kenyatta is unhappy his preferred candidate lost the general election. Ruto made the sentiments during an interview with CNN's Christian Amanpour yesterday night. During the virtual appearance on CNN, Ruto said he would work with leaders across the divide to unite Kenyans.
Unfortunately, President Kenyatta has not seen it fit to congratulate me. But I think that's fine. I mean, maybe he's a bit disillusioned, or maybe he's unhappy that I defeated his candidate, but that is the nature of politics.
Ruto was also put to task to explain his stand on the LGBTQ community.
We do not want to create a mountain out of a molehill. This is not a big issue for the people of Kenya. When it becomes a big issue for the people of Kenya will make a choice. As it is now, we are grappling with 5 million young people who do not have jobs, 4 million people who are hungry, and that is my concern. We have our tradition, we have our customs. We will continue to respect other people's customs as they respect our customs and our tradition.
The Kenya Defence Forces is expected to brief the country today on ongoing preparations to swear in President-elect William Ruto and Deputy Rigathi Gachagua at the Moi International Sports Centre next week, Tuesday. Military rehearsals have been ongoing at the arena for 2 days now. Former Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua, who is part of the transition committee, says more than 40 heads of states are preparing to attend the ceremony. That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, looking at traffic at a few minutes after 7 o'clock, and just like we thought, it's going to build up in certain parts of the city. Lunga's also already looking pretty busy as you're going to connect with Jogo Road, and there we have it. On the Thika Superhighway, traffic getting into the city really, really heavy. It's doing the same thing on Kiambu Road, and for some reason, traffic has returned to Langata Road this morning. As you're getting out towards the city, we're going to see that build up. Uhuru Highway is also pretty busy as you're going out towards the CBD. Let's look at North Airport Road, and then it's connecting with Outer Ring, which at the moment is not too bad, but you're going out towards Embakasi and it's going to pile up some in minutes. All right, then coming out of Westlands, that has already done the thing as well. Bernard Estate is actually popping out on the map. Andrew, good morning to you. And we're seeing some traffic there coming out around that whole Kileshra into Lamington. Naivasha Road is already doing the thing. Not quite sure what's been happening there in the last couple of days, but it's pretty busy. And we're looking at James Gishuru spilling over to Wayaki Way out towards Kuna Road, which then affects your Red Hill Link Road. So that looks like it's going to be crazy traffic. We're going to keep an eye on that. If you're in the area, let us know what's going on exactly and we can share. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's keep things moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
7 minutes after 7. Good morning
Situation.
and welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. You're saying Bernard Estate appears on the map.
It does. It's popping right there.
Do you know how many other estates? Let me just show that
There's
map
Thompson
again.
Estate, Bernard Estate.
Groganville Estate. Do you know where that is, City?
Groganville.
Yes.
It's not somewhere near River Road.
Groganville. No.
Thompson Estate.
See Thompson Falls.
Wow. Okay.
You know where Caledonia Estate is, of course.
Caledonia, I know.
You know where Caledonia Estate is?
See, I live near there. That's how come I know.
There's some Thompson Estate. There's a...
There are quite some.
Yeah, that's the Groganville where I was looking at. I'm wondering.
Groganville is where? The Thompson Estate.
No, up there.
Who could you?
You.
There's Golf Course Estate. There's Woodley Estate. Up
You're
is where
looking
now?
down.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
near Dick
Oh,
Gardens.
voila, there it is. Okay, near Dick Gardens.
Yep.
you said.
That's in Kilelesho.
There's Hurlingham Estate, Caledonia Estate. Yo. If you look closely at about 3 p.m., you'll see CT sitting right there.
At Caledonia Estate.
Yeah.
Him and Uhuru, his neighbor.
Yes.
Same was up.
See, everybody has neighbors.
Yeah. In my name. Pande ile ni kwa Uhuru. Pande ingine ni kwa
Let me
City.
tell you. You know what's going to happen? Pande itakuwa ni ya Uhuru. Pande ile just immediately itakuwa ni ya Ruto. Na pande ingine ni yangu.
Na uko pande ya nyuma.
Yes, niko pande.
Hey. Tell us the day's proverb, City.
Right. The shepherd of a herd of toads must be very patient with his rod.
The shepherd of a herd of toads must be very patient with his rod.
Yes. I would like to take this view.
Take it, please.
In the unlikely event that you have this onerous task of herding toads.
First of all.
Toads. If you must herd them with the rod, please,
Be very patient.
Patient, be gentle with that rod.
So is it be patient because they're going to be all over the place, or be patient because if you strike a toad with a rod, you're killing it?
For sure, if you don't kill it, you'll puncture it.
Or something.
Yeah? So be very patient with a rod because you will be harming the toad, or be very patient with
You
the rod
may be
because...
harming it fatally, actually. Yes. If anything, I would think that if you were a shepherd of a toad, perhaps...
It's already a really Herculean task.
Yes. Perhaps you ought to reconsider the task. Huh?
Reconsider your job.
Hold a kamkunji first.
Unajua mtu anafanya ile kazi imepatikana. Kama hii ndio kazi imepatikana.
Yes.
Unajua kuna kazi.
Kazi ndio hiyo.
Ambia serikali kupatia kazi.
This is a person who has actually hustled and gotten himself a job that other people can't do. Shepherding toads.
Shepherd toads. What do? I shepherd toads. For what? For a living.
As in, by choice.
Actually, if that's the job you're doing, you really don't want to talk about it in great details. You just want to say you look after a flock and leave it at that.
Nobody's going to really ask you flock of what.
Mimi ni mchungaji.
Jaji. But now, watch you happen. You said toads. You know, they likely move closer to you to actually determine whether you're okay.
And tell me more.
Oh, ni mchawi. So continuing that conversation about education, right, that we've started. Flip the conversation a little bit. The Usawa people.
Trust.
Usawa Trust. Dr. Emmanuel who? City?
Yes.
Dr. Emmanuel Manyasa. You know, they released a report, which was basically just looking at our secondary school system, and it has glaring iniquities in it. Let me give you the numbers, for instance. The number of day secondary schools in the country, every 6 in 10 secondary schools in Kenya are day secondary schools. 58%. That means you only have 42% boarding schools. If we look at the categorization of schools, you know, we have national school, extra county school, sub-county school. Yes? Only 1% of schools in the country, of national schools in the country, is day. Extra county, only 6% are day schools. County, only 13% are day schools. 70% of sub-county schools are day schools. So when the teachers' union say, let these children go to the day schools, basically we're saying let them go to the sub-county schools. Okay. But let's just go beyond that.
Allow me to just put
Please
something
ask.
there so that you can be clear for those who are listening. We're talking about the public school system.
Public school system.
At this time.
Yes.
Please
You
carry
see,
on.
it's only public school system that have these categories of national.
Yeah.
Private schools
some
are
people
not.
Get it mixed up, yeah.
Private schools don't have a categorization of whether they're national or sub-county. They are all just private schools. They're high cost or low cost.
Or medium cost.
Or medium costs, depending on who is asking.
Indeed, it's the shepherd of the toads.
Yes.
Right.
It depends on who's asking and how you calculate your medium to low. Higher. Let's talk about school's head and the experience. Okay? 73% of school heads in national schools have 9 years and above in experience. 65% of school heads in extra county schools have 9 years and above experience. 55% of school heads in county schools have experienced 9 years and above. You see, we are reducing as we go. 43% of sub-county school heads have experience of 9 years above, which means 57% of school heads in sub-county schools have less than 9 years experience.
They do.
Okay? Let's look at the employment type. If you look at those that are employed by TSC versus if your teacher is in a school is either employed by TSC or employed by the board. Board here means parents. 80% of teachers in national school are TSC teachers, which means
Repeat
only
that again so that it can be 80%.
80% of teachers in national schools are TSC teachers.
Yes.
That means that the boards and the parents only contribute to employ 20% of teachers. In extra county schools, these are the former provincial schools, 71% of teachers are TSC employed. That means 29% are BOM employed. In county schools, 70% are TSC employed, which means about 30% are employed by the BOMs. Let's go to the sub-county schools, which is where the bulk of the day schools are. 67% of teachers in the sub-county schools are employed by the Teacher Service Commission, which means 33% of teachers in the sub-county schools are employed by the local parents. So when a child is going to a local day school, the parents of that local day school have to contribute money to hire a teacher. How much do you think they're paying this kind of teacher? That tells you the kind of experience that the teachers have in this school. If already the teachers in the sub-county school, majority of them, the head teachers, have less than 9 years experience as head teachers, the teachers that are going to be employed by TSC and deployed to the sub-county school have little experience. 30% of the teachers in the sub-county school are
In fact, why don't I give flesh to this particular skeleton? Because I'm an immediate former chairman of a board of management.
Yes.
You will find that the experience...
Of what category of school?
This one was a...
University.
Yes. So, if you're talking about...
So they are not trained teachers?
No, they're not trained teachers at all. And the experience, they're gaining it on the job. Then there were a couple of teachers who, yes, had degrees, but did not train as teachers also. There were people who wanted to teach.
Yes.
Okay? So now, when you say that they were handicapped, you could argue that 20 to 30% of the teaching staff in a school such as the one that I was the chairman of the board of management of were not TSC teachers. Yes. And when people talk about new teachers, what often happened, and Dr. Manyasa explained this very clearly, we didn't get new teachers, we got teachers replaced.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So, and it took time for that replacement to actually take place. Sometimes you waited, and that's why you fill the gap. And because it's a local school, the person you're going to employ is also local.
Yep.
Somebody known, so-and-so's child went to school, went to university, they don't have a job, you ask them, would you like to teach?
Would you like to teach?
Yes.
As you wait for something else to other opportunities to open up
yes.
for you. So that you end up now having majority of our schools being taught by at least 30% is just people who have zero experience, zero to little experience.
No training as teachers. Let's start with no training.
Training, yes.
Yes, and then teachers. Experience again follows. So, what chance do these students have compared to those schools where 80% of the teachers are not only trained teachers, but they're government TSC sponsored teachers?
Yeah.
Tell me. That disparity is glaring.
And it's huge, and it continues. And though it even goes on to a point where if you look at then the performance of students from these schools, it shows you, because the majority of the D's and E's that, for example, came out of the 2021 KCSE were in the sub-county day schools.
You actually get the impression that the D's and the E's and the F's were actually created for these schools.
Yep.
And yet, if you ask me, it has no bearing whatsoever on the children's capacity.
No, it doesn't.
It's the playing field that there has been allocated for them. It is uneven at the very best.
Look at the distribution. So we've talked about distribution of teachers. Distribution of the other resources. Let's say labs, all right? National schools have 6 times more labs for chem, bio, and physics. 6 times more than sub-county schools.
Actually, it's like this. The so-called national schools have labs for physics, separate labs for chemistry,
separate.
Labs for biology. Different subjects, different labs.
Yep.
A school such as the one that I was chairman of the board for, one lab.
For everything.
But of course, and we are fortunate we have a lab.
There are others that don't even have anything that's close
and
to
these students are going to be examined, or rather, they're going to sit for the same examination that involve lab work as what? The schools that actually have labs.
Of course. When the KCSE comes, they are doing the same kind of exam.
Okay. Now, as we're looking at this, obviously, as you're unpeeling the layers, then you realize that the problem that is actually being faced here is multiple. There are multiple folds of this issue.
Yeah.
Right? There's an infrastructure issue, right? Obviously, there are communication issues, right? And then there are issues of personnel, okay?
Yep.
And then there's funding issues.
Yep.
I'm going to go right to it and say, for the amount of money that is allocated to the Ministry of Education to make sure that education is then carried out, taking all of these other things into consideration, you're not getting a match-for-match situation here. Number 2, it is I think, in terms of space, there is enough space. It just now depends on how willing you are to categorize in the proper manner.
Yep.
We cannot continue to have a situation whereby, because you are leaning towards this categorization of schools, for example, that you will have sub-county, ex-county schools who get the short end of the stick because, number 1, you're not sending trained personnel there because you simply do not have it. Number 2, you are now dealt with this problem that we are currently facing whereby we do not know, and that's the truth, guys, that in 4 months, We do not know exactly how 1.28 million students are going to fit into infrastructure for teaching that, number one, does not exist, or number two, is almost full to capacity. That's the current situation.
Yep.
That we already have Form 1 to 4s in school today. We're going to have an extra set of Form 1s in December who are going to school in January. And then you're going to have 1.2 million Class 6s who are then going to Class 7 who also need to be in these secondary schools in January. There needs to be a complete reworking of the available system. I'm not saying bring in new... Remember the way Manyasa told us they were not... they were bringing in new teachers, or they were now replacing others. I'm not saying build. Even these ones, the build, I don't know how many, 10,000 that were being built around the country. That same infrastructure can be used, but we now just have to fill people in, students, learners, in different spots. And there should be no fear in actually saying, can we change the way in which things were being done so that we can accommodate this issue?
I think we start from the very beginning, the basics. We know I have grown up and went to school knowing that there are categories of schools.
Yes.
In those days, it was either district school, provincial school, national school.
Simple.
Right? Simple. We moved now into the county system, and we have national school, extra county school, sub-county school. We have categorization of schools. We have a law that was rewritten for the education sector to deal with devolution, right? We have a policy on education to deal with devolution. However, none of these actually talk about categorization. Categorization of schools is not anchored in any piece of legislation. It is not in the Basic Education Act, under which secondary schools are established, or the sessional paper number 1 of 2019 on education. None of those two provide for categorization of schools. So why do we have categorization of schools?
Where would the pinch lie if you decategorize schools in Kenya today? And say, let there be a level playing field across board. It doesn't matter where the school is. It doesn't matter whether it's at the X-county, sub-county, county, national. Decategorize schools today in Kenya. I'm telling you, you will solve this problem that we're currently facing right now. That everything that is available in one school is available
should be available
in the other.
in the other schools.
If it's a lab that's needed for physics, science, chemistry, whatever, it is available here. It is also available here. That a school in the middle of nowhere, as is often said, will have the same facilities that is needed for another school. So guess what? This child who is in this county, where normally would say, okay, I would need to go somewhere else because the facilities then that are needed for me to be able to have a proper education, I cannot get here. I have to go there. So now you eliminate that problem. I think that is where the thinking and funding should go.
This is what
not
should
building
happen.
Extra classrooms.
This
not
is what
building
should
extra
happen.
Classrooms.
Look
can you
at
facilitate the ones
bringing
that are currently
all
available?
these schools, especially if we just focused on bringing the sub-county schools and the county schools to the same level as the extra county and national schools.
Exactly.
Normalize and standardize all these schools, then we're okay. It doesn't matter whether you're going to the local day school or whether you're crossing over 3 counties to go to a school that was previously called a national school. You are now all equal. It shouldn't matter. You're in the same category of school. Same. You can now look at, so we have, because of performing this way and that way, there are some schools. Of course, that's how we're going to go into the senior secondary schools. Senior secondary schools that are focused more on the sciences or the STEM subject, and the senior secondary schools that are looking at more of the arts and other subjects. All right, so we can start looking at them that way.
Exactly.
But in terms of facilities, it should be the same.
And we're not talking about something that it would be resident in outer space. Because if we're looking at the story of how did Rwanda do it, and truth is that this is exactly what they did. That looking around the country, can you be in the northern hills of Rwanda and today decide that you want to be able to avoid having your child going to Kigali to go to school? You can do that. Your children can go to school near where you are, and you can be assured that the level of education, the quality of education, the infrastructure needed, everything that is available in Kigali is available in this school. And that is why today in Rwanda, private schools are doing what? They're shutting down. Why is that happening? Because the public school system has gotten so good that people don't actually need to spend the extra money to send their children to private school.
Yeah.
It is subsidized by government, but at the same time, it is delivering a quality that has never been seen before. Private schools are crying and asking for a quota of learners to be sent to them on a yearly basis. If not, they shut down. Why did they do that? Because they have created a level playing field across board and they have applied the quality that is needed at every juncture. And it can happen here. Like I said, there will be bumps in the road, but what you do is that you all these problems that they've been complaining about. When we saw CBC being enacted and then we started to cry and say, 2022 class 6, 2022 class 6, 2022 class 6, what are we going to do? That's where we are right now. You can avoid all of this. Decategorize this system.
And you know what happens?
Make everything available across board.
Because of the current status, let me just give you the picture. About 1 million children sit KCPE, and then about 900 and so thousand sit KCSE.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the 900 and so thousand that sat KCSE in 2021, which was this year, right?
Yes.
C minus and above gives you admission to TVET and university. Below C minus, you do not get admission to TVET and university. That means you don't get post-primary education, just as post-secondary education directly. The number of students that got C minus and above and where they came from. 93% of the C minuses and above in 2021 came from national schools. Or rather, 93% of the students in national schools scored C minus and above. 78% of the students in extra county schools scored C minus and above. 42% of students in extra county schools got C minus and above. 23% of students in sub-county schools got C minus and above.
Look at that.
We are saying that 77% of students in a majority of the schools in the country
cannot attain a grade of C minus and above.
And we ask ourselves
and
why.
Did not.
It is not because they were blah, blah, blah. No, it's because they did not have the same access to facilities.
The playing field is not
No, it's very
standard.
Uneven. There's what you may refer to as an academic value. And what makes this value potent is if the facilitation of education includes the ability and not just the process, but the overall environment in which this student can learn. You see, we were tossing around just the issue of labs in schools, labs in national schools, and it would be a crying shame to understand that there are schools in this country where students have heard there's a lab. They've just never seen one.
They don't know what lab is.
Well, yes.
It's true.
There are students who sit for agriculture, if there's such a course, but they are in a double-story building in the middle of somewhere where they...
In the middle of an estate.
Yes. Now,
you know, in secondary school, it's mandatory that you take at least a science. I think it's 2 sciences.
Two sciences.
It's
two.
So if you're taking at least 2 sciences, that means you're either taking biology, chemistry, biology, physics, or chemistry, physics. Any of those.
You
need
a lab.
You will sit an exam where you'll be told to do titration.
Or the way we were
what
dissecting frogs.
What on earth is titration?
Or the way we were dissecting frogs, and then you look at the frog's toad limb under the microscope.
Yep.
And then it's in the exam.
Let me take this thing further so that you understand it. That 80% number that you spoke of, one of the things that isn't said when people look at categorization of schools and the experience of teachers, many experienced teachers are also examiners.
Yes.
In a time gone by, and even now, some of them are also people who set exams. Now, there's an advantage. I speak as somebody who was an examiner and who was even a team leader in a paper that I examined in the previous century.
Okay.
Because you're an examiner, you will have a very clear understanding of what is required. You will not know what is going to be presented, but you know how to teach your subject, and you also know how to teach the students how to respond to questions. You have that advantage.
Yep.
Now, that's what experience comes with. Now, here you are in a school where half of the people who are there, yes, may have a degree, 1-year experience. Let's say they even are trained as teachers.
Yep.
How are you going to compare their ability with somebody who's been at this thing for 10 years?
You can't.
And this is what is represented in the national schools.
Yep.
And then followed by the extra county schools. You are disadvantaged from the get-go.
From the moment you just get into that school, your goose is cooked.
No, absolutely.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So if we can take a few steps back, sorry. I really want to understand at what point this categorization of schools began to take place. And why was it so? I really, really, really would like to understand the reasons as to why it was done in the first place. Maybe then it will give some direction as to what folks were thinking and then why they held on to it. I don't.
You know, if you look at just the way our secondary schools were categorized, every province in this country had not a provincial school, it had provincial schools. Now, the underlying criteria was actually academic excellence and then followed by choice.
So there were centers of excellence.
Yes, but let's take a step back. The way schools were categorized and the primary schools, they were determined by where you live. Meaning, again, this policy, if you have an X number of people living in a certain area, you must have a school that caters for them.
Those, yes.
And that is why you'll find literally every estate in this country, there were schools associated. Now, what the education ministry did not do, they didn't keep up. As people increased in number, all they did was they kept stuffing those same schools with more and more students instead of expanding them. And that is why you will find schools are named after the estates around which they are nestled.
Yeah.
Ofafa Jericho School, it is in Ofafa. Kilimani Primary, it is in Kilimani. Buruburu, it is in Buruburu. Now, when the government ceased to actually expand schools to meet the ever-increasing need, one, as I said, and then came the Kibaki era where we now fast-forwarded this thing, where you said free education. Everybody went to school. The schools had not been enough before then. Now they were clearly not enough. The proliferation of private schools were there to meet a need.
Right.
Okay? Had the government kept up, because in the time that we're speaking of, again, I'm fast-forwarding and summarizing it really quickly. What you talk about Rwanda, the preferred schools were government schools. People didn't go to private schools.
And it's just walking distance.
Yes.
The whole concept is starting at primary level, it's walking distance.
Sure.
And then the students from this number of schools in secondary schools would then, or primary schools, would then go into this secondary school that is near them. And then now we started looking at the centers of excellence.
Yes.
So these schools will go, those who excel in this, then they go into a nearest center of excellence. Those who do much better, they go into a provincial center of excellence. Those who do exceedingly well, they go into a national center of excellence. But you see, that then was maintained.
Okay.
Like we're keeping it that way. So it could have been center of excellence, but standardized this. You can say all those who scored 400 and above, is it 400?
Yes, the maximum is 500.
KCP.
So 400 and above.
So it's all those who score 400 and above can then be taken into one area, center of excellence in this school. They have access to the same kind of facilities as those that scored 102 and 150. It's just that those who got to 150 could be in this school, local school here, but if they go into the lab, they'll be able to do titration the same way that person who's gone to Alliance will be able to do titration.
I get it.
The problem today is Alliance guy knows titration. Kimbana secondary school guy has no clue
that the word even exists.
By the way, if you look at even the proliferation of trained personnel, believe me, those schools all had teachers who were trained. And when I say all, I mean literally all. So chances of you doing well, that's why at some level it didn't really matter. Because so long as you had teachers who are qualified and who are trained, dedication, same. It just so happened, again, as I said, national schools always had that advantage because of what Eric has mentioned. At every level, the entry point was much higher. To get to a national school, you really need to do very, very well, not just well. To get to a provincial school, you need to do very well. I mean, it was like that, but it didn't mean. And in those days, you had Form 5 and 6. So you may have gone to a provincial school in Form 1 to 4. In Form 5 and 6, because you've excelled, you go to a national school. That was the understanding. But if you look at how it is that people go to university now, please remember, there was just one university then.
Yes, the
University of Nairobi. Yes. Okay? But jobs came a-calling.
In fact, they look for you
before
you even...
You go to Form 2.
Yeah.
You start for Kenya Junior, you could get jobs.
Right.
You went to Form 4, you could get a job. Form 6, now there were jobs. All that changed.
25 to 8, let's take this quick break. County 49 should have the best national, the best extra county, the best sub-county school. But does it?
Yeah, does it? And maybe that's one of the reasons why the people are making noise and saying, you know what, you governor, you deputy, come, let's have a word with you. And you can look and watch all the intrigues of County 49, which takes place in Bwatele County on Showmax. For 760 shillings per month, you can have access to this and other great programming looking at the intrigues of life in the county.
Indeed, and it's the 8th of September. The 25th of September is a date that you should keep in mind. It's going to be a Sunday, and all roads are leading to the Nairobi racecourse. Why? Because that's where Africa's most prestigious spectator motoring event, the Africa Concours d'Elegance, is back with a bang. 10,000 motorist enthusiasts gathering every year to enjoy the sights and splendor of this event. The Golden Jubilee is bound to be the biggest celebration of cars and elegant fashion yet. The main attraction, the judging of 70 classic and vintage cars, 40 motorcycle under regulations approved by the Kenya Motorsports Federation and the Motorcycle Sports Federation of Kenya. The venue has ample parking. There's going to be fun activities for the whole family, including a fully kitted and secure kids area. Expect a world-class showcase of beauty and elegance. That's the Africa Concours d'Elegance, back with a bang on the 25th of September at the racecourse.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We know it is cold, but Cold Stone Creamery has hot deals for you. This month, enjoy cups of rich and creamy ice cream, delicious ice cream cakes, and fresh oven-baked cakes at amazing prices. Visit any of our stores in Nairobi or Mombasa and indulge in your favorite treats. Cold Stone Creamery, the ultimate ice cream experience.
Introducing Bwatele, County 49. A rich county where the leadership has failed its people. Justice and peace are elusive while violence sweeps through the county. What will be done to save the people of Bwatele County? Watch County 49 as our heroes and villains clash in an exciting tale of corruption, greed, love, and redemption. Every week on showmax.com.
Showmax has done it again. County 49. A gripping political drama that follows the ongoings within Bwatele County, Kenya's fictional 49th county, premiered to much acclaim on Showmax on Thursday, the 25th of August.
If any of our demands are not met, your governor will be executed live online.
Join me and my co-hosts CT Muga and Eric Latif on the Situation Room from 6 a.m. every weekday to find out more about County 49 and why you need to subscribe to Showmax for this and more premium Kenyan content.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
Cloudy
You're
conditions
listening.
not letting up. In Nairobi, 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 20. 22 will be the high in a rainy in Nakuru at this point. It's 13 and raining in Nyeri, highs of 18 and lows of 13, and it's 13 and rainy as well in Eldoret, highs of 22 and lows of 12. Light rainy Mombasa, 22 continues. It's 23 and raining in Malindi. It's also raining now in Kisumu at 19, highs of 27, and the rain is coming down at 17 in Kakamega. It'll go to highs of 26. Kampala wet as well at 19, highs of 25, and Dar es Salaam standing out. 21 degrees and sunny conditions, highs of 29 and lows of 21. It's sunny at 12 in Johannesburg, highs of 24. And it's 24 at the moment in Lagos. Rain is continuing, highs of 29, and 29 will be the high as well in a clear Kinshasa, currently at 23. All right, traffic continues in most parts of the city. It's really heavy coming off of Thika Superhighway this morning. It's bumper to bumper as you're going out towards the CBD. Yeah, into Kiambu County today, and it's really heavy. Also coming off of Kiambu Road, we're looking at Limuru Road. Very, very crazy. Okay, I don't even know what's going on. But if you start at Ring Road Westlands and then you come this area, State House Road, going out to Dennis Pritt, looking at Oloitoktok, and then Mzima Springs, that whole area coming out towards James Gishuru is an absolute what? It's an absolute mess. Naivasha Road traffic is bumper to bumper heading out towards Kingara Road. Gong Road then coming out towards the roundabout and then towards Community. I don't even know what's going on here, guys, but it's really messy. We're going to need a lot of patience and fingers crossed. The rain is also coming down, so the roads are slippery, so it's a traffic mess this morning. And we also know that, there's a little bit of traffic control in the city as Parliament opens today. So that means that some parts of the CBD closed off to the general public as you try to find alternate routes to use. So just a heads up for that. That has already taken place. Let's talk in a bit. Tell us what's going on where you are. SpiceFM, KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
All right,
Spice
18 to
FM.
8. The conversation continues. Eric Latif Nduoko, CT Muga. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM. This hour we are talking about the education sector and the inequity that is our secondary school system. Quoting figures from the USAWA agenda that has done a lot of research on this sector and looking at why we categorize schools. Why do we have sub-county, county, extra county and national schools? Number one, it's not supported in law. It is not in the Basic Education Act. Neither is it in the policy. That is the sessional paper number 1 of 2019 that talks about education in the country. So where did we start categorizing schools? What's the impact of categorizing schools? We end up seeing that national schools and extra county schools get a bulk of the resources, yet they have only 30% or less of the students. Most of the students in this country who are in secondary school are in the day sub-county schools. Day sub-county schools have school heads who have less than 9 years experience. A majority of them have maybe about 5 years experience. Day sub-county schools have 33% of teachers employed by the boards of management. And like a former chairman of the boards of management is telling us, what that basically means is parents are looking at a local person who has finished secondary school, they're waiting to go to university, come and teach. Or somebody has just cleared university and before they get a job, can you come and teach? How much are they paid? Those are the ones that you end up paying 3,000 shillings a month or something. Zero training as a teacher. 10,000. Zero training as a teacher. Zero experience in teaching. And they are teaching our secondary school students.
What do you expect?
What do you expect? And that's why you end up with 2021 KCSE candidates. 78% of the students in sub-county schools scored C- and below, compared to only 7% of students in national schools who scored C- and below.
It's isn't it very simple the way we're looking at this thing? That there's no complication, but that what you put in is what you're going to get out.
Yep.
If you're looking at to have an education system that is meeting the needs of students in terms of learning, which is ascertaining their position where they're going to be able to go at the university level, you are the one who has prescribed. Okay, you are the one who has prescribed that in order for you to go to a TVET.
Yep.
Right? We're not even trying to be lofty.
Yep.
A TVET.
Just the vocational training.
Just vocational training. You have already set the bar.
The minimum entry level is going to be C-.
C-, right? And you already know.
And then for some courses, they also look at the subjects.
There you go.
So if you want to do nursing,
that means you would
must
have done some science.
Something in biology, all right?
Eric, not that you would have even scored. You had to have taken the course.
You have to have taken biology.
In order to have taken the course and to have succeeded in taking that course, there are certain elements that you need in order to make sure you have succeeded. The sciences need to happen. And we're already saying that today there's a disparity because there are some schools whereby you don't even have a lab. So you tell me.
A majority of the sub-county schools do not have
Okay, so
labs.
Please tell me. I really, really want to understand. Tell me how you are going to then complain that you don't have students who can meet the mark when it comes to going to... I'm not talking about the University of Nairobi. I'm talking about vocational training. And you're saying that in order to get this C-, there are certain things you must have done. But the infrastructure for these things to be done does not exist. And you are the same body that has set the mark. So what are you doing? It's like saying, I've come to this bakery and I want cheese pies across board. What is the main ingredient of cheese pie?
Cheese.
You are the one who is supposed to provide the ingredients. The main ingredient to get this thing out does not exist. But you've put all your chefs there to say, all of you must produce this thing for me. But some you've given, others you have not. How do you expect the result to be the same across board? I'm saying it doesn't matter who it is. Give everybody the same facilities that they need. Decategorize this thing and let everybody have access to what they need. And then you can now pick from a pool where everybody is the same.
Yep.
That is what needs to happen. You want to make this education system work? That is what you need to do.
And especially now that we're talking about CBC. So CBC transition from primary school into junior secondary school, it should just be uniform. From there again into senior secondary school, it should also be uniform. You're going to a senior secondary that focuses on sciences, fine. You're going to a senior secondary that focuses on the arts, fine. In junior secondary, you're all the same. Can you at least get the same kind of facilities?
You know, the other day we were talking about some drama we were seeing in 2 counties where the governor-elects were parading people either in stadiums or asked them to stand next to vehicles. And the interesting disparity between the 2 examples we're looking at. And one of our listeners actually wrote and told me that you must understand that they don't have any money. So how does a governor make themselves relevant? You can't start any project. There is nothing. You're governor, yes. So you have to have some activity that shows that you are really governor. But now, if you talk about the Ministry of Education, I'm drawing a parallel here. The Ministry of Education is well funded. Remember,
bulk of Kenya's budget singularly goes to the Ministry of
Yes.
Education. 800 billion shillings.
Yes.
More than double what goes to the counties.
Yes.
Every year.
More than double what goes to 47 counties goes to education.
We've asked this question.
Year.
Yes, we've asked this question and said, yes, all these things you keep telling us. Accounting. And in addition to that, they've given COVID and the extra problems we've had, they've been given additional monies.
Yes.
Every story we've heard, whether it is the desks that fold and sing at night, the stories are incomplete. Whether it is whatever project that started, what we're treated to is a lot of drama, a lot of words, and a lot of movement. No one sits down and clinically tells you, okay, folks, this is what we got. Let's go county by county and let us tell you what it is that we did. I'm sure the report exists somewhere. But if we went to, as we say, the ground, would we find what you're saying? Now, ask yourself this question. If over the years the government has neglected, let me backtrack. The Ministry of Education has not kept up with meeting the needs of its ever-increasing population. All right? We are now at this 11th and a half hour where we are saying there's a new system of education we want to usher in. Okay. And it requires certain things to be put in place. Remember, the previous one didn't have everything it needed. Please remember, it didn't. We now have a new one. Now, are we not piling one problem on top of another problem? The new system has its merits.
Yep.
But all these systems have their merits.
Indeed. Now, this categorization of schools that had already happened, right? It became an MO for the system, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, the 844 system was working, okay, many would say it was working well. Others would say it was not because of the outcome that you get from learners at the end of it. That it became a cramming system. In terms of wholesome learning, it wasn't really happening. So how about we bring in a system that will make sure that different aspects of life are touched and then you're assessed as opposed to tested? Because that's it, basically, the difference between the two. Basically, okay, I'm really being really basic. Now, these problems that we're talking about now have existed before. The person who finished high school 10 years ago in a national school, the person who finished high school 10 years ago from, X county school, I have had the same issues that we're talking about today in terms of disparity. That happened. The school that didn't have a lab 10 years ago, whatever, maybe has a makeshift one today, and there's still some who didn't have. Now, I'm saying, in the midst of all of those problems, in the midst of all of that, you then throw in a new curriculum. You basically toss in a new curriculum. And these are the questions that I think there was a select group of individuals at that 2018-2019 cusp were trying to say, guys, we have a problem here. Already the disparity that exists from school to school is hitting us in the face. We're not able to deal with that. And then you take a new curriculum and then you toss it in.
Yep.
It is a recipe for disaster. And guess what? That disaster is going to be felt December, January 2023. It is going to be felt. Because these problems that we're looking at now is just, they're telling you there is smoke. You people have not seen the fire yet. And it is going to happen. I see it as a really simple solution. It is going to take a lot of work. It is going to take a lot of leveling here and there. But if you want to get rid of this problem, I don't know how many times I'll say this, but I'm going to keep saying it. If you want to get rid of this problem that you're seeing here, these disparities that we talk about, then having to ask yourself, where are we going to fit these students? Level the playing field.
Completely.
That's the only way you're going to be able to sort this thing out. Then if you want, 10
All
years from now,
children
still
in
bring
this
in another
country,
curriculum if you want. It'll be fine.
By the Constitution, every child in this country has a right to access basic education. Okay? Now, they also have that right comes with the rider that it shall be quality basic education. It means that all children should be treated the same. Now, very many people would, even looking at the comments, very many people would talk about how lucky they were to go to a provincial school, to go to a national school, getting the access to the services that you got, and also that, of course, gave you a leg up in where you ended up landing.
It did.
It gives you the leg up because then you basically, once you've gone to a provincial school or national school, you are guaranteed almost that you are going into post-secondary education.
Yes.
Okay, at university level. Those classmates of yours that you left behind and they went to the local school, you know very well, it basically condemned them.
Yes.
The chance of them getting that pass mark is low. And you can sit back here and say, yeah, but also not performing very well in primary school. Okay, that's not the point.
That's not the point.
Actually,
they needed access to the same kind of education which could uplift them and be able to move them post-secondary.
Actually,
they don't get it.
There's a concept that educators will tell you about students, what we call learners, what we call slow learners. It doesn't mean they're incapacitated. No. They gather momentum slowly. If you give them time, and that's where probably CBC will come in handy, because it enables one to understand that this academic stuff isn't really this person's forte. But they excel really well in this particular area.
Yes.
So much as we now give them the academic understanding that they require, but we also help them to become stronger. How many stories do you hear of people who, from 1, 2, 3, were just somewhere there?
Yeah.
Years later, you find that person has excelled tremendously.
Oh, yes.
Exactly. Simply because their maturation process was different. All I'm saying is, the idea of understanding just the differences that students have, education is not supposed to disadvantage students. It's supposed to advantage them.
Exactly.
So, when you have a class of, say, 40, 60, 80, and you want to compete with somebody who has a class of 15.
It's impossible. It's actually impossible.
What do you think is going to happen?
It is impossible.
Even if that teacher is trained and is able to teach, my friend.
And I'm telling you something. I think, look, so when you're presented with this thing, okay, so we're moving into CBC for the class 6s now, then who are going into JSS in 2023. You see that 10 billion shillings that the Ministry of Education was giving to go and build more classrooms. I think the CS could have been bold enough, and the people who advise him could have been bold enough to say, you know what, our problem is not more classrooms. That's not our issue now. Our problem right now is taking a study of what we actually have available vis-a-vis what we need.
Yep.
Because now you've gone and you've built these structures. Maybe some of them don't even have the requisite
desks,
chairs,
blah,
labs,
blah.
libraries, whatever it is that you need. But because we needed a space where you can actually, because that's what we're saying, create spaces where you can put bodies.
Yep.
That's it, basically. In terms of the learning and the infrastructure that was needed for learning, I don't know that has happened. That 10 billion shillings could have been taken and we could have recalibrated this whole thing completely. This because they've been doing it for the last 12 months. That's what they needed.
The next administration, the William Ruto government, needs to do that.
Yes.
It needs to focus on this. So his manifesto, the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, actually talks about education and talks about investing a lot more in the sub-county schools. I think the first thing that they ought to do is scrap categorization of schools. Number one, don't look at any school as a national school or as a sub-county school. Look at schools as schools. The same way we look at primary schools as primary schools. There's no categorization in primary.
Nope, doesn't matter.
Why do we have
it's
categorization?
It's either public or private, but that's just about it.
That's it.
All primary schools in the country are primary schools in the country. Of course, we'll still talk about the lack of facilities and all, but they are treated the same. We should treat all secondary schools the same. Chris is saying, I went to a provincial school. I had access to 2 labs for each science subject. That means 6 labs in the school. Competing with my brother who got access to a lab while in Form 4.
1 lab at the end of his education.
That is the time. Form 4s are the ones who have access to lab. You Form 1s, Form 2s, you can go look for toads and slaughter them by the river.
Outside there and tell them what
How
to
you
do.
going to compete with someone who's had...
Somebody has had access to labs for each science subject.
Yep.
Then somebody
And these are the basic sciences.
Yes.
There are now those ones who will have an extra lab. There's a workshop for power mechanics, a workshop for electricity,
There's
workshop for
woodshed.
aviation. There's
for woodwork.
Yeah.
For woodwork.
The works. Automotive
Then there's
engineering.
what we used to
All
call
that
home
is
ec
there.
is like now there's another one where home science where you cook
Home
and do all those
sciences are
fancy
there.
stuff.
All
It was
My
there.
friend, some even have music pavilions where you have rooms
Yep.
with the pianos.
Yep.
So if you want to play music or you want to sit on the piano, there's one to sit on.
And soundproofing.
Yes. Now,
in
now
those
you
rooms.
tell me.
Now, do you see where that 10 billion shilling would have made sense?
And at the end of the year, you're all sitting KCSE. What nonsense.
So I really would like to have a chat with Dr. Manyasa and find out, okay, these things that we're talking about, are we talking about things that are we building castles in the sky?
No, we're not.
Because we're
No.
not. How much does it take to put
We're
together
not.
a lab? For example,
we're not.
that 10 billion shillings that was taken around the country that people are trotting about, would it not have significantly buffed up the infrastructure that was already available in sub-county schools, for example, or in ex-county schools?
There are things which are far more difficult than what we're discussing in this country.
mean,
For
and
instance,
they've been done.
For the longest time, we didn't think you would have a road network that people can look and say, you know how we like grumbling and complaining about everything? You grumble and realize, actually, this grumble is a little misplaced.
Yeah.
Because this thing was actually done.
They've put a road in the air.
By the way, have you traveled on that road in the air?
They put it in the air.
Forget the delays.
Is it new?
My friend, you're actually
here.
in town before you realize you're in town. You think that you're actually at Nyeri Stadium. Kumbe, you're at the museum roundabout.
Things you never thought could happen.
All I'm saying
This
is,
can happen.
precisely. Now, this one, in my mind, is even easier because the infrastructure for doing it has always existed.
It is there.
You're not starting something new. No, you're just tweaking it. And the funding for it has also been there. If you add to the schools that exist, or if you build new ones, we'd be having a different story. But this hasn't happened. It's like the government sat back and said, let the private investors take care of that particular need.
Yeah. You've basically abandoned the children.
Yes,
This is what we've done. When the Minister for Education comes out every year to read results, and he forgets the fact that, as I'm reading this result today, 67% of the people who start KCSE will not have not attained the mark to get them directly
that we have
into
set
TVET.
to get them to TVETs. That we have set, not
Every
somebody
year.
else.
67% get C- and below. What are we talking about?
I don't know, man. Why are you even bothering? Stop the train.
Let's go to the next hour, into the news, and then next time we talk about the working outside the country and the agents. We'll be joined by a guest in the studio. Good morning, it's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is Newswire. I am Stephanie Wangari. Heavy security has been deployed inside and outside Parliament building ahead of the inaugural 13th Parliament sitting. Parliament building has been Parliament Road rather has been barricaded and traffic diverted ahead of the sitting. The 349 members of the National Assembly and 67 senators who will take their oath of office today are expected to start arriving any time from now. After taking their oath, their first order of business will be to select new speakers and deputy speakers of the respective houses. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance has nominated former Speaker Kenneth Marende for the Speaker position of the National Assembly, deputized by Dadaab MP-elect Farah Maalim. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has also been picked by the Azimio team to vie for the Senate Speaker's position.
We've had our Azimio PG this morning running into afternoon, and we had the privilege of having our spleen spouse with us. And we have resolved as Azimio Coalition Group that we have Mheshimiwa Kenneth Marende as our candidate for the speakership of the National Assembly to be deputized by Mheshimiwa Farah Maalim. We have also resolved that we'll have His Excellency the former Vice President Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka as our speaker candidate for the Senate and to be deputized by Mheshimiwa Senator Manzayo Stewart kutoka Kilifi. Na tumekubaliana kwamba sisi tutakuwa kule kufanya yale yanatakana na kuwa pamoja na wao. They are useful for the assemblies and they are also useful for this country.
Meanwhile, President-elect William Ruto has settled on Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula and former Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi as candidates for the National Assembly Speaker and Senate Speaker respectively. The Kenya Kwanza Alliance also confirmed Gladys Bos-Sholei as their candidate for the National Assembly Deputy Speaker and Kathuri Murungi as their Senate Deputy Speaker.
We consulted with some of the party leaders and leaders in our alliance. We settled on Moses Wetangula for the Speaker of the National Assembly. For Senate, we are recommending Amason Jeffa King. We also, after consultations, we are presenting to you Lady Bos-Sholei. We are presenting Kathuri Murungi from Meru County as a deputy speaker for the Senate.
President-elect William Ruto says he has reached out to his main challenger in the just concluded polls, Raila Odinga, to discuss how to forge the country together. In an interview with CNN, the Kenya Kwanza Alliance leader said he's focused on ensuring that his government serves all Kenyans regardless of their political affiliation. Despite having a telephone conversation with his boss Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday, Ruto says Uhuru is yet to congratulate him on his win.
Unfortunately, President Kenyatta has not seen it fit to congratulate me, but I think that's fine. I mean, maybe he's a bit disillusioned, or maybe he's unhappy that I defeated his candidate, but that is the nature of politics.
Exiled lawyer Miguna has requested the assumption of the office of the President Committee to guarantee him safe passage into the country so that he can attend President-elect Ruto's swearing-in ceremony next week. In a letter drafted by his lawyer Adrian Kamotho, Miguna urged the committee chairperson Joseph Kinyua not to overlook his plight, but instead facilitate his return to Kenya as the council makes final preparations for the change of guard at State House. Njenga implored the committee to lift all red alerts that have been imposed on Miguna following the 2018 deportation. He insisted that Miguna was a legitimate Kenyan citizen. That's your news at the top of the hour. My name is Stephanie Wangari.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
What's happening in the western part of the city this morning? That would be the question. We're looking at Gong Road, really busy. Naivasha Road, crazy. Gitanga Road, going out then towards James Gishuru. This whole Dennis Pritt, then going out towards Mzima Springs. That doesn't look too exciting right now. And we're also looking at the Red Hill Link Road, which is bumper to bumper out towards Lower Kabete. And we're also then looking at Huru Highway coming from the western side. Really, really busy this morning. Okay, are you there? What's going on? Let us know. We're also looking at traffic really heavy on Kiambu Road. In and outbound is bumper to bumper. And coming off of Outer Ring, that junction into the city through to Pangani is also doing the thing. Juja Road, Kangunda Road, Manyanja Road, connecting with Outer Ring. We're looking at a crazy Thursday in terms of traffic. The roads are wet as well with the drizzle that continues this morning. Let's know what's going on where you are, folks. We're trying to keep it moving, but doing so safe. SpiceFM, KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to
It is
start
7 minutes after 8. Good morning and welcome to the third hour of The Situation Room this morning, live on SpiceFM, KTN Home, on YouTube and on Facebook. We have been on air since 6 in the morning and we're here until 10 in the morning. We have a guest in the studio. We want to continue the conversation that we had yesterday about the plight of Kenyan workers in the Middle East. Kenyans who are seeking to work and live in the Middle East. We know that they form a huge chunk of those who are sending diaspora remittances in the country. We know that there are many who are in those countries and they're doing okay. And we also know that there are many who are not doing okay. We have a guest in the studio for that conversation. Before we welcome and introduce her, let's hear the day's proverb from C.T. Muga.
Yes, our proverbs today begin rather with the list of proverbs today moving forward come from Chad. The shepherd of a herd of toads must be very patient with his rod. Now, this is the proverb. When you have many toads in a group, it's actually referred to as an army of toads. But for purpose of the proverb, we're calling them a herd because it is herds that are shepherded.
So the shepherd of a herd of toads must be very patient with his rod.
Yes.
Do you suppose the shepherd is a toad or is it a human?
You know, when you start asking me these questions, you are giving our listeners the impression that I wrote this proverb. I'm reading it.
Well, sheep don't herd sheep, do they?
No. In the kingdom that brother here comes from, and this whole system he visits from time to time.
Oh, where he does a walkabout.
Yes. Toads actually shepherd other toads.
Okay.
But I think about it, the probability of somebody shepherding toads. What on earth would we be doing shepherding toads? Where exactly do you want them to go to?
I mean, if you're in certain parts of France, you'd be shepherding them because you wanted to use them later for some kind of, cuisine.
And what?
You want to eat them. So you
Toads.
want to make sure that
Toads.
toads, some variety of toads, frogs, yes.
Eat.
Frog legs.
It's okay.
For their legs.
But why would you be shepherding them?
So, you want to take them for a walk about as they
People eat toads.
Yes.
Just asking.
Yeah.
I thought you were telling us the other day that you really like this seafood soup.
Something.
A toad isn't a sea animal. It's found in rivers.
If you do crabs by friends, you can do toads.
Kwani, what, are we measuring cuisine by the official expressions? So you look at a toad and say, okay, this one looks a bit. Then, okay, you look at a squid, this one looks a little, then lobster, hi, surely.
Okay, be patient with your rod.
Okay.
That's the bottom line.
Right.
Sawa.
So, Eric.
Yesterday we had a guest in the studio at this time. Anthony Kerry Ngarama, who was telling us about his wife who left the country and went to work in Saudi Arabia in March, was able to be in touch with the wife until the 10th of July, and then thereafter it's just been difficult to communicate with the wife. Monday this week, he was able to have a video call with somebody who was trying to link him up with where the wife is, but he didn't get to talk to the wife, or rather they didn't communicate. He spoke to the wife. She didn't even look at him at the camera. She didn't talk. She didn't utter a word. So he doesn't know what's up with her. Those that are minding her tell him that she's unwell. He doesn't know exactly what this means. She's no longer working. She's somewhere in a hostel, and he just wants his wife back. This is just part of the very many stories that we've heard over the years, and we keep hearing them about people who have gone to work in the Middle East. And the question always starts with, there are agents who help you to relocate to the Middle East. There are agents who help you to get employed in the Middle East. And when they board you on a plane here, the local agent leaves you alone. When you land in the Middle East, whichever country you've gone to, and then you're taken to your employer, the local agent basically also abandons you. That's the complaint that we hear from those that are returnees, and they're saying, this is the kind of ordeal that I went through. We have an agent in the studio this morning. Violet Karanu is the director of the J Horizons Travel Agency. Good morning, Violet.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Welcome to the hot seat of Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Tell us about your agency and what you do, how long you've been in operation.
My agency is J Horizons Travel Agency. We are an accredited recruitment agency by National Employment Authority under the Ministry of Labour. We've been facilitating domestic workers, casuals, labourers to the Middle East, that is Saudi, Qatar, Dubai, and the likes. We've been on operations as a company since 2014. I myself have been in the industry since 2010. Previously, I was employed in the same industry, but then 2014, that's when I opened my company. So then I can say that I'm at a better position to speak more about any questions you might have to.
So Violet has 12 years experience in this industry.
Yes.
Okay. And your company has been here for the last 8 years.
8 years, yes.
So you have, and you're duly registered by the National Employment Authority. Correct. Take us through this registration process. What does being registered mean? What are you registered to do exactly?
So you need to get, especially to be able to recruit for the Middle East, that is Saudi, Qatar, you need to be vetted by the National Employment Authority. You need to register. There are specific requirements that you're supposed to have. Supposed to have an office. You're supposed to have a HR person in your office as well. There is a license fee that you're supposed to pay, which is an equivalent of 500,000 Kenya shillings for the license, valid for 1 year. And once you get that, then you're registered and you're given your license, and then you're registered on this platform that is called Musaned, which now governs, for example, in this case, we're talking about Saudi Arabia, right?
Okay.
So there's Kenya and Saudi Arabia, and there's a system that is called Musaned, where once you're registered, you're enrolled on this system, and you're able to contact and contract with other agencies from Saudi, and that's the platform we use to recruit. Yeah.
So who runs this Musaned?
It is run by both the Saudi Ministry of Labour and the Kenyan Ministry of Labour. So, for example, National Employment Authority have access. I cannot issue visas in the Kenyan embassy without an approval from the National Employment Authority. Yeah. So there's a place where we have to upload their passport and request approval. Again, after you've submitted all the documents required for the girl to get a visa, then NEA, the official in charge, is going to make an approval. So then after this approval, you're able to proceed to the embassy to get the visa. Okay. Yeah.
So how do you then, or how do agents generally select those who are going to go? Or is it a free-for-all? Anybody who wants to go, I can approach you today and say, look, I want to be able to go and work in Saudi Arabia. And then you would now start the process for me. And then what is your selection? What's the selection process? How do you make sure that, who's going is legitimate and all of this?
First and foremost, what we look at is a will to work, right? Do you have the will to work? Because you might come to me, you want to work, and you want to go to travel for work. But as I look at you, I analyze you. You just want to be that person that wants to be in a plane and then be like, bye-bye, I've traveled, right? So I have to see the need for you to work, yeah? And then there is the age requirement, which is 21 and above to around maybe 45. And then there is, of course, the physical appearance in terms of any sort of abnormalities. Maybe you don't have a hand and things like that. And then... what else? Gosh, I got lost. Anyway, so once and then you're supposed to go to school. We take you for training. Yeah. When you go for training, so there is NITA who coordinates the training, and there are schools that are approved to do this kind of training. And once you do that, you're then given an examination. This training goes for 3 weeks. You're then given an examination. So once you pass these examinations, then it qualifies you to proceed to get your visa. If you don't pass, then it means that you have to go through training again. And then there's the medical examination that we do as well. You have to be fit to get a visa.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how much are these applicants charging to be? Because basically, if I'm coming in, the assumption is, and you can walk us through this so we can get it right from the beginning. The assumption is that there's an amount of money I pay, and I hand it over to you, and then you facilitate everything for me, and then you tell me, look, Ndu, your stuff is ready, you may then go. Is that how it works?
No, that's not how it works. Okay. No. So for our domestic, so we are still on the topic of Saudi Arabia, right?
Yes.
You come to me, you want to travel for work. The first thing I will ask you, do you have a passport? Because that is the number one requirement. You cannot leave the country without a passport. And then if you do not have a passport, then I will ask you, do you have a birth certificate? Because for you to get a passport, you need to have a birth certificate, ID and all that, right? So then we will start processing all this documentation. Yeah. So...
So that's stage number one. Okay. Somebody has come to you, they are willing to go, and then the first thing you want to find out is whether they are fit to travel, whether they have the documentation for travel. If I say, yes, I have a passport, then
you have to be enrolled in school for training. Okay. Yeah, and this training, it's free. We don't charge you for training. We don't even charge you for the medical test that is supposed to be done. You don't pay. Sometimes you even find a candidate who tell you, I do not have transport to come to Nairobi, because most of these training centers and all these procedures are done in Nairobi. So a candidate will tell you, I don't even have transport to come to Nairobi. And we would also facilitate that. So there is no single coin that a candidate pays on regard to domestic work.
What does that mean? When you say the training is free, when you say that transport Nairobi and maybe even accommodation during these 3 weeks is going to be catered for, what does that mean? Who's paying for it?
So the employer is paying for it. The employer in Saudi Arabia who needs an employee approaches, so now they deal with the government. You approach the government, you then register and fill in the form that you need to have an employee from Kenya. There is a service fee that you're supposed to pay, which this is going to cater for all the processes in the country here in Kenya. Your plane tickets to your country of work. It will cater for your residency permits, your work permits, all these health insurance and stuff like that.
Violet, thank you very much. You've actually now introduced us. So we are dealing with both sides here. We are dealing with somebody who's seeking employment in Kenya, coming to Violet, and we are dealing with somebody who is looking for a worker in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
This person in Saudi Arabia, who do they go to? Who's the Violet equivalent? Who's the J Horizons equivalent in Saudi Arabia?
So there are also accredited agencies in Saudi Arabia who their main purpose is to do recruitment on behalf of the employer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when this person, let's say, give me an example. A family goes to an employment agency in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And they say, we'd like somebody to come and work for us. What are they required to do?
So they are required to fill in the form, give details about their family, give details about where they live, what's the number of people who live in that house, what kind of person are they looking for? Are they looking for a nanny? Are you looking for a caregiver? Are you looking for a cleaner? Yeah, all those specifications, And then you given a number of CVs to choose from. Yeah, so we produce the CVs here. So once we've done all your documentations, we make a CV and then we send to our counterparts in Saudi Arabia. So then a client, when they walk in, they say, this is what I'm looking for. And then they say, okay, this is what we have. And then they choose from there. And then they're like, okay, this is, and then the office over there will tell us this has this particular employer.
All right.
Right.
So let's say, for purposes of the conversation, it's the ladies that you're sending to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So let's say, now for these purposes, Ndu is one who's come to J Travel in Kenya.
Right.
Eric is one who's gone to this agency in Saudi Arabia. So by the time I'm walking in there, I'm only going to find the people that Jay and the agency in Saudi Arabia have dealt with and created their CV.
Right.
So I look and I select, okay, I'd like this one called Ndu to come.
Right.
Is that the point when I start paying now for their transport and their...
Oh no, that's not the point you start paying, but there's a down payment that is done to the Musanid, right?
Okay.
So that they can start the process, right? And then once the visa is issued and then we've sent a copy of the visa, then the full payment is done so that now we can facilitate the travel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does Ndu pay on this side in Kenya? Because this is a thing that many people have said, I have to pay something in order for me to then gain access. What do they have to pay, or is there anything they have to pay at all? I can come to you, basically, I say I'm looking for a job, and you figure this out, and the agent on the other side has also dealt with the family. What are Kenyans paying here?
Zero.
Nothing.
Nothing.
So nobody's paying anything.
As far as I'm concerned, no.
Are there agents, to your knowledge, that are asking or charging for Kenyans to be able to get access to the system, which would then give them jobs?
You'll probably find an agency who'd request a candidate, you know what, are you able to pay for your own medical?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they'll be like, yeah, I'm able to pay for my own medical. Okay, then
it
pay for
this
it.
much.
Yeah, it costs this much. Then you can pay for it. I mean, I don't see a big problem with that, because it's also... making someone feel independent and work for what you're getting, right? If you feel that you have the ability to pay for your own medical, you have the ability to pay for your own passport, that's not a problem. But then if you come to me and tell me, I really want to work, but I don't have the ability to do this, then I'm going to tell you, you know what, I'm going to finance you.
Okay.
Yeah. But then again, if I'm financing this one and this one and this one, and they keep talking, oh, why didn't you finance me? So I always be like, you know what, I'm going to do it for everyone.
You do it for everybody.
Yeah.
So how do you make your money?
Because I have a service fee that I charge my counterparts in Saudi.
Okay.
So then all the cost is included in that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your money comes from your counterpart in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Now, is there any understanding that as an employer who's gone and paid some amount through Musanid, I am going to recover the money that I've paid? I mean, I've paid for somebody's transport, I've paid for their medical tests, I've paid for their training.
And I'm still going to pay them a salary.
They're coming and I'm still going to be paying them a salary. Am I going to recover any of this money?
I mean, if you're not going to recover the money, because even when, for example, if you have someone coming to work in Kenya, a company will need to pay all this stuff, right? You need to pay work permit, everything. And if the employee gets to a point where they don't want to work anymore, they have to leave, you lose, right? So it's a gamble. But once the contract says when you go there, you have 2 years working contract, and you have 3 months probation period. During the 3 months probation period, the employer or the employee can decide, we are not working together and it's not working for us. So we can change, yeah? And then you change the employer or you change the employee. Or if the employer gets to a point, you know what, I don't trust the candidates that your office is giving me, I'm going to have to withdraw within the 3 months. So then he's entitled to have a refund. Yeah. Depending on what agreement they have with the Saudi counterparts. Okay. Yeah.
There's something that you've said which I found particularly intriguing, and this is the process you go through when vetting a possible candidate for employment in Saudi.
Right.
Do your counterparts have a similar vetting process for the employer? Do they go into the background of this employer and find out whether this person actually does need somebody to work for them, or they have some nefarious intent for actually getting somebody?
Or they lied. They said my household has only 4 occupants, and yet it has 12.
Yes.
Right. So this is one of the things that I always have a conversation with my counterparts. I tell them, listen, I am doing this. your turn to do the same, right? So I cannot speak for other agents. I can speak for myself and say, yes, my counterparts are doing it. And I tell them it's important for them to do it as well. And also, as much as I'm trying to educate my candidates here on the cultural awareness, how the Saudis live, they also need to educate them how our Kenyans live. So then there's a balance when they go in, they know how to coexist with each other.
Sure.
But this one, even as you say it, it strikes me as everything that you're doing is actually sanctioned by the government. Government agencies are at the heart of everything we're doing. Should this, instead of you taking the mantle of trying to determine, or you and your counterpart in Saudi, should this not be something that both governments actually have a hand in? Because it's governments that have the resources to know about people, not individuals. I can lie to you if you come to me. But a government agency, it will be difficult because they can know things about me that no one else does.
Right.
I'm simply asking, should the government not be,
the one doing the vetting?
Yes, should they not be the ones who are actually doing should they not play a part in this vetting on their side?
On their side.
Yes.
Well, this is a good point. And as the industry is growing, because this industry has a long history, right? And as we go, these are some of the suggestions that we do when we have meetings and suggest to them, maybe this is what you're supposed to do on your end to make it easier for us as well, right? And they also make the suggestions to us that this is what we are able to do here to make it easier for them. It's a win-win just to play together.
So, Vivian, I'm sure you've heard the stories. I mean, and we're not talking about, what has been sensational in the past couple of days. We're talking about the stories that have come out in the last 10 years easily, of isolated as they may be, because obviously bad news travels faster, isn't it? Yeah. But there have been some really crazy stories coming out of Saudi Arabia in terms of the mistreatment of Kenyans who've gone there to work, who've gone through what they see to be a legitimate agent, the manner in which they have been treated when they're on the other side, and then the even more painful issues that they've had to deal with in terms of repatriation to Kenya. What is going on from where you are sitting? Because every time we speak to some of these people, the issue that comes in is that the person who took me there now is incommunicado, and now I have no way I cannot reach them. That's been the thing. Right. I can't reach them. They're not telling me anything. Even when they try to facilitate a phone call, we have recordings. We've heard from people who tell us these things. So what's going on?
Sundu, listen, we've had history in this business. Like I said, initially, what used to happen, you'd have a visa sent, I'm talking about 10 years ago, yeah? You'd have a visa sent to you by DHL. And then I'll come to you and tell you, you know what, I can take you to Saudi, I have this visa. And then we go to the embassy, get your visa issued, and then you travel. There was no system to know what's going on, right? And then it later happened that we had all these foreigners come in, and we used to call them briefcase agencies, yeah? So they come with a load of visas, and they approach, probably they go to a busy area like a market, find a mama mboga there and tell them, you know what, I have this amount of visas. If you get me this amount of girls who want to travel, I'll give you this amount of money, right? And then these girls travel, they're happy, and then they get there, they have a problem. Mama Mboga is not available on phone. Yep. Maybe she changed her phone, right? Or she doesn't care anymore. She got her money, don't stress me. Where does she start, right? And then the other guy who was a briefcase agency, they don't even maybe have her number or something. So those times you find someone, the girl has never been to an office, doesn't even know the office that processed her visa is located where. So then those times we used to have so many of those cases because you end up in distress and you have nowhere to run to and you have nobody to advise you, yeah? And then in 2014, the government banned the business. And they created a task force that came up with an idea that the two governments came together and made a bilateral agreement. And they now form the Musanet system where now you're able to check who is, for example, if I travel to Saudi and I put in my passport number on that system, I'll be able to see which office facilitated my travel locally, which office received me in Saudi, who is my employer, what is their location, what is their phone number, etc., etc.
So Musanet does all these things because it's a government-to-government arrangement.
Exactly.
And Musanet is actually managed by the two governments,
yes.
Government of Kenya and Government of Saudi Arabia. Are there people who are leaving the country and going to Saudi Arabia to work who are not going through the Musanet system?
No. There used to be a point that we had some cleaner visas that they didn't go through the Musanet system. Now it's not possible.
It's not Just say that again. It's not possible for you to be in Kenya today, like the people that we see who even left last night, the people who left the day before when Diana made her way back into the country.
The people who are going to leave today.
The people who are going to leave tonight. That there's nobody who is going, and let's just again use Saudi Arabia as the example, that will not leave from Kenya going to Saudi Arabia that have not been through the Musanid system.
Not at all.
So where is the complaint coming from? And that's my issue. That where is the complaint coming from that and for me, it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 100. That if one person is complaining that they've been mistreated and they cannot have access to be able to get back, that's one too many.
Yeah.
How then do they get to the point whereby somebody is in distress, they're unwell, they've not been taken to hospital, they're trying to get in touch with somebody, they cannot reach them. It takes the intervention of a local member of parliament to start to push with Mofa here and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I mean, if we're saying that the system does not allow, or rather that you cannot go without this system being involved, then how do we get that situation happening?
Yeah. So it gets to a point where you have for example, if you travel with my office, and you get there and you have a problem, you have a number. By the time you live in here, you're taken through your contract, you're made known what are your rights, right? And you have a problem, you have a right to contact me or my representatives in the office and let us know what is your problem, right? Okay. In some scenarios, you'll find that probably there are agencies who are not able to follow through with the cases that they have. And also, I'm lucky I've been in business for a long time, right? So for we as Kenyans, we like to see, okay, there's a potential in some sort of business and I want to get my foot into it, right? Yep. And then today you come in and you say, you know what, I want to try this recruitment business, and you open your own company, and then you get through with it, and then you have a case where a girl has a problem, and then you get confused all of a sudden. What do I do?
Because of your inexperience.
Yeah, because you don't have any experience, right? And as you try to find solutions from your colleagues and from the government or whatever, then the problem has already blown out, So then we need to get to a point where we are able to work together and also be in a position where we can be able to advise people who are new in the business and also know how we can work together with the authorities and the government on how to help the girls in distress.
There's a question that's still not answered.
Okay.
And the question here is, why would somebody get to a point of distress? Why would somebody go and get to a point? It doesn't matter where the experience of the agent here. There's a government involved. There are two governments involved. But then somebody has gone and they get to a certain homestead there and they are in distress and they don't know how to deal with this issue.
And we're saying the home has been vetted as well. I
Yes.
mean, that's from what you've said.
Yes.
The home where this person is going to, because in most cases they are homes. They are homes.
Oh, yeah, they are homes.
Right.
Yeah.
They've been vetted as well.
There's a government
this person
involved.
is in distress.
Yeah.
By the time
So we
the
need to
Kenyan
understand-
embassy is dealing with this, let's talk about this after we come back from this break. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Violet Karanu. She is the director of J Horizons Travel Agency, one of the many agencies that are licensed by the National Employment Authority to recruit and take people to go and work in the Middle East. We're talking about this case of Saudi Arabia particularly. So we understand so far from Violet is that the deal between the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the government of the Republic of Kenya. There's a system in place. It's a portal. It's called the Musanid portal, where all this is regulated. So what we want to understand is, where is the breakdown? What's working and what's not working? 27 minutes to 9. We'll be back shortly after this break, and also after reminding you about County 49 on Showmax.
Indeed, the fictional county of Bwatele, and it's looking at the intrigues of governance and leadership and how a people who have issues have decided to take matters into their own hands. Sound familiar? Anyway, you can catch all this action on Showmax for as low as 760 shillings every month. Have access to that and other great content for your viewership. County 49 is the latest buster. What do I call it? What do they call those things?
Blockbuster.
No, Blockbuster is a movie.
Okay.
This one is a series.
But series is not a movie?
No, sorry.
What do you want to call it?
I was trying to be Nini.
Okay, is a documentary a movie?
No, please.
Okay, so let's call it a Nini.
Okay, that one.
Yes.
760, for as low as that, and you have access to this and other great content only on Showmax.
And we're counting down to the 25th of September. It's a Sunday when all roads lead to the race course for the Africa Concord Elegance.
I have a big hat.
You do?
You know the one that you have to look like?
That one? To go and look at city's vintage car.
Exactly.
You want to see vintage cars, vintage motorcycles. It's a day for fashion, for looking at those fantastic day, 25th of September.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This nation has never healed genuinely from the 2000-2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country after the coup attempt of 1982.
There's no Kikuyu pothole, Luo lack of water, or Kamba, lack of traffic. There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. All our issues are the same issues.
If you are in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another, what impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans you'll be in for a rude shock.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Okay, this thing says it's partly sunny in Nairobi. It's not. Highs of 20 today is what we look at, and lows of 14. The drizzle continues. 16 and cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 22. Rain showers at 13 in Nyeri, highs of 18 and lows of 13. And it's raining in Eldoret at 15, highs of 22 and lows of 12. Light rain at 23 in Mombasa, highs of 28. And we'll see highs of 28 as well in Malindi, where it's raining at 24. Rain showers continue in Kisumu at 20, highs of 27. And we'll see highs of 26 in a rainy Kakamega as well at 20. Partly sunny conditions now in Kampala after that morning rain, highs of 25. And we'll see highs of 29 now in a sunny Dar es Salaam. It's 13 and partly sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 24 and lows of 13. And Lagos is partly cloudy at 25. We'll see highs of 29. 29 will also be the high in a sunny Kinshasa at 23. And that will be the low for today.
Chilled Spice.
All right, users of Mombasa Road have been spared the traffic that's going on in other parts of the city this morning because it is really a mess. We're looking at Raila Odinga Way now being taking some spillover from Langata Road. Gong Road, it looks like it's going to be really busy for some time. Naivasha Road is feeding onto Gong Road. It's also then feeding off to Kingara Road. And then we're going out then towards Oloitoktok Road, out towards James Gishuru, which is really heavy as you're getting off that drift. And then onto the Red Hill Link Road, which was your escape, not so much this morning, because it's very heavy as you get towards Lower Kabete. That whole area then going into Pipone and then finding its way to connect with Red Hill and then Limuru Road. Traffic is heavy. We'll take a look at see what happens in about half hour. Let us know what's going on where you are. Keep it safe. The roads are still slippery. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
22 minutes to 9. We are seeking to unravel and to understand exactly what happens when Kenyans leave this country and go to Saudi Arabia to work. And then there are those that are happy, and there are many that are not happy. And not just not happy, they are actually not doing well at all.
You know what happens is that so long as no one is complaining, nobody even wants to know what it is that you do. We just know that people, families, members leave the country, go and work abroad. When there's a problem is when now there's this scrutiny and there are all these questions. Now, as a business, is the collection of individuals and companies that are part of this industry of yours, are you members of the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah.
Okay, now.
That's a requirement.
It's a basic requirement.
Yes.
All right, now, what are some of the services that the Chamber of Commerce, because Chambers of Commerce have relationship with other Chambers of Commerce. Right. So, are you saying that, say, for instance, if you want dealing and seeking employment for people, but say you are selling mangoes, and that someone in Saudi had a problem with their mangoes, wouldn't the Chamber of Commerce come in and try and rectify that problem? Wouldn't they have a mechanism for dispute resolution, if I may call it that?
Right. Right.
And does ours do that?
Yes, precisely.
So no, they've been very helpful, and normally they're the ones that help with the bilateral agreements and the negotiations. So, and we've had continuous meetings with them and airing our problems. And as we speak, they've had meetings with the ambassadors, and they're arranging on how they're going to have like safe houses in different parts of Saudi Arabia, where they're going to have like, if you are in distress, you have a place that you can run to rather than going to a hostel where you can be hosted. Yeah, so you just run to your Kenyan safe house, and you find a Kenyan there who's going to help you, and labor attaches in the safe houses as well.
I can understand that as an intervention. I can. But in your opinion, is that dealing with the issue? And I guess we can come back to that in terms of that question. Is that, I mean, from where you are, I mean, I doubt, but of course we're living in a world of crazies,
Right.
but I doubt that an agent is going to want to take on Kenyans, put them in a situation that has potential danger, and then not want to do something about it thereafter. So I can understand that as a mitigating interim solution, but the fact of the matter is that there is an issue that puts these Kenyans in distress in the first place.
Right.
So the question is, at this point, are agents on this side of the pond able to guarantee that where you're going to work, that nobody's going to mistreat you, nobody's going to assault you, nobody's going to do whatever it is when you're in their employ? We've heard stories. I'm sure you've heard them as well.
Right.
Vivian, people, their pay is held. Their passport is taken. They cannot even take a walk from here to yonder.
Right.
They are sick. They're not taken to hospital. Some of them are beaten.
They're denied
Women
food.
are raped. People show up dead. They're denied food. People come back to Kenya, they're emaciated. And we're hearing that you go using a system that is foolproof. On both sides, everybody knows what's going on. But we have these cases that are occurring. So the question is, can we really guarantee that they're going safe? Ambassador Macharia said the other day that he said, for this class, stop going.
Yeah.
But
this is
people
not
still
the
said,
solution, yeah.
this is not the solution.
Yeah.
Safe houses, in as much as they could be a good thing in an interim stopgap measure, is not the solution.
So number one solution we need to do is educate our candidates who are traveling there on the sort of different distresses that they are going to face, right? For example, if it's you go to a family and you have issues with food, we advise them on what you're supposed to do on that issue, yeah? Because they have different kind of patterns in terms of their day-to-day life, yeah? You wake up in the morning, you have the whole day to do your chores, but your employer is sleeping because it's hot, and then they wake up in the evening, that's when they do their thingy, yeah? And then you need to eat. You cannot wait for them to wake up to be able to eat. So I'm able to advise you how to deal with that kind of a problem, yeah? I'm also able to advise you if you get to a point where you're sick, what are your rights on that regard, yeah? You have a right to health care, and you have a right to tell your employer, I'm not feeling well, I need to go to the hospital. If your doctor says that you need a day off, then you need to get a day off, yeah? But then this is where the two offices come in together. So my candidates contact me because they trust me, and I'm the one who facilitated their travel, right? And I need to be able to trust my office over there that whenever my candidate is in distress, I'll be able to communicate with them, this is what my candidate is going through, and this is what the employer has done, and this is what we expect you to do. And then they need to follow up and let us know what solution was, what solution they got, right?
Is there a requirement for either of you agencies to conduct random visits to where you've placed your candidates? So you can just go and check, go visit them and find out how are you doing, how are you finding the family, how's the working condition, are you okay, is there anything that you need?
No, we don't have that requirement to be able to visit them because it's somebody's house, right? You cannot just appear, right? But we do have contacts, right? I can contact them by WhatsApp, by phone calls, and check how they're doing. We have a support group on WhatsApp where all the candidates, for example, they keep contact, and whoever has an issue, they ask for advice. I am going through this. What should I do? Things like that, yeah? But another issue that happens is we as Kenyans, we like to... We are hungry, and that's a good thing about us. We see an opportunity and we want to grab it, yeah? But you get there and we have this, I call it a mafia. There's this whole mafia that is recruiting people from employer's house. So you go, you're working for this employer, and then I come and recruit you to run away because I will take you to a certain employer. That employer will give me some little kidogo, right? And then I'll take you to work there. But the moment you run away from this employer, you're illegal, yeah? And you go and work to this other employer. This employer is not anywhere in the system. They can treat you however they want. You have problems, you've run away now. You cannot even contact me because I don't even know how to assist you from there. Yeah. So the only thing I can do when you contact me is to ask you, where are you? Can you go to the nearest police station? Then can we liaise with the embassy to see how we can assist you on that regard. But the moment you run away, you're illegal.
Do you get many
That's
of such cases?
We do have a lot of those cases.
So what is this that is happening? So how does this rogue agent know that there is somebody, a potential person in this house? How do you even contact the person in that house?
So
I mean, because we're talking about you're in somebody's homestead, right? And you came in directly to this homestead, landed at the airport, you were picked up, you were brought into this particular homestead, and you're working in there. This other mafioso, how do they know that I'm in this home and I would be willing to?
So they have like a group, and whenever they go to the schools, to the training centers, they create groups among themselves. And one of the candidates that are there are ex-Saudis. We call them ex-Saudis, people who are going back for the second or third contract, right? And they are already in touch with other people over there. So you find that you have gone there the first time, and then someone tells you, oh, how much are you getting? 900 Saudi riyals? And they're like, you know what? I can get you 1,200. And you're like, okay, I'll come for it. And then they liaise, okay, send me your PIN location, we'll send you a taxi, and the taxi guy comes there and picks them up, and they disappear. That's it. And we can trace them anymore. Once you leave, that's it.
So you're basically poaching your candidates.
Yeah, they're poaching our candidates, and it's a big mafia over there that are doing this. We just need to find a way that both governments can come together and just kill this.
So why has it not been addressed?
It has been addressed to some level, but also sorry to say that there are our own Kenyans there in the embassy who are doing that. Because I do have candidates who came back, who ran away, and I try and keep good relationship with them because I know that I need to help them. And if they get into problem, I'll be the one who'll be crucified, right? So when they come back, they tell me, you know what, I need to come back. I'm sorry I ran away. Could you please assist me with my copy of a passport, right?
Okay.
And this copy of passport is supposed to give them a temporarily paper to travel back home, yeah. And who does that? It's the guys in the embassy. And then I ask them, but how is that going to work? Ain't you supposed to go to deportation first? Because once you run away, the easiest way to do is go to the deportation center. And if you have money to buy your own ticket back home, you do that. And if you don't have, then you have to wait for the deportation center to arrange for you to go back home, right? But then they say, oh no, I'm not going to go to deportation center. What is going to happen? I'm going to go to, there's a guy in the embassy that I'm going to pay a certain amount of money, and then they're going to arrange for me paper to come back home. So it's a very complicated issue.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. We asked the question a couple of days ago, and I think obviously because people are coming to agents to say, look, and I'm sure there are lots. People are still coming today to say, I would like you to facilitate for me to go. These are Kenyans today who don't have jobs, who have jobs, but what they're being paid they cannot survive on. What other cases are you seeing of people who are coming and saying, look, for whatever reason, just get me out of here? Because I'm looking at that Saudi riyal you've talked about 900. That's 30,000 shillings, roughly.
30,000
per month,
yeah.
Isn't it?
Tax-free money.
Tax-free money.
Yeah.
Nobody's touching it. It's just that, and then you're living in this house or whatever. They're
Zero
feeding
expenses.
you, they're clothing you, all of this.
Yeah.
It's a world away from what they're getting here.
Yeah.
What are the reasons why people are going from what you've seen?
Unemployment first, and then we've had cases of a mama want to just go and work and educate her children. Yeah, there's a lady who is there who says, my daughter is in university. I need to stick around here for the next 4 years until he clears. Yeah, some of them have just given birth. They don't know how they're gonna find money to raise that child, so they leave that child with their parents, and then they travel and make money and send back home. Yeah, some of them want to make some money to go and be able to come back and further their education. Yeah, some of them want to be able to go and make some small money and come and start business. Yeah.
So even with some of the stories that we hear, people don't. So what is it? People are willing to risk it, or people are going with agents that can be trusted? What do you see is the reason why people are still going?
First and foremost, I think it's because Kenyans are go-getters, and they're like, you know what, I'll do whatever it takes to secure that bag, right? And then second, they say, okay, with that, I need to find an accredited agency and a credible one that I feel safe with, yeah. And so they go with that option, yeah.
Okay. A number of things that you've mentioned. Number one, that the passport is held by the agent. Is that correct?
What do you mean? Held by the agent in the country or
wherever? Because somebody's calling you and telling you, can you facilitate me with my passport and my travel documents?
Right.
Why is it that?
Why don't they have their
Why
passport?
don't they have their passport?
So locally, I will need to keep your passport because I'm the one who is facilitating the visa. I'm the one who's going to take all the passports together to take them to the embassy.
Okay.
I'm the one who's going to bring them back from the embassy, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And then when they travel to Saudi, so the narrative is that the employer keeps the passport. Now, there's a reason why they keep the passport.
Why?
Because they know their own countrymen. It costs a lot of money, an equivalent of around, let's say, maybe $3,000 to have an employee come to your...
bring the employee to your
Yeah,
house.
it costs roughly around that amount.
Air ticket, plus
yes,
the
exactly.
facilitation and everything.
Right.
Okay.
And then there's this other person who doesn't want to pay that amount of money. Yeah. And they're waiting for the moment that you come there, and then they're going to be like, entice you, I'll give you half more of what you're getting, yeah? But I only need you for 3 months, yeah? And in return, you'll have your own freedom, you can do whatever you want, yeah? So they're only safeguarding themselves. It's not because of the candidates. It's because they know their own country people. Because if there's no, for example, if there's no Saudi who is willing to employ an illegal person, there will be no runaways. Because where do you run away to? Who is going to employ you? Yeah.
So, if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is that the cases we hear of, given where we are sitting and what we do, we hear more and more of these cases. We are saying these are the anomalies. These are not the regular cases. These are things that happen per chance, and these are just bad apples. So let me ask the question. On a yearly basis, how many people would you say roughly, anecdotally speaking, say go to Saudi Arabia to work, or in the Middle East? Or not, just...
Yeah, in a year, we can say around 3,000.
3,000.
3,000.
All right. So if we then say that the complaints we hear, say, amount to, say,
we know hundreds.
Yes.
Are complaining.
Yes.
Yes. Quoting the PS for Foreign Affairs.
Yeah.
What
when
he told Parliament.
Yeah, hundreds are complaining for a specific period of time. Yeah. But we have around 300,000 Kenyans in Saudi Arabia as we speak.
Alone. Saudi Arabia
And
alone.
that is the registered, the ones that are registered, yeah? The one that we can trace. The others we cannot trace. So if you have a small number of, let's 100, yeah, compared to 300,000, it's not a small number, but it's small, right? It's just so to say that there are problems. There will always be problems, yeah? It's just we need to recognize what kind of problems and how do we avoid the problems and how do we need to solve those problems if we get to that point, right?
So you're saying you're learning and improving as you go along.
Yeah.
Because this is what industries do. You start off assuming that what you're doing is correct or it's good, and then you realize perhaps you hadn't taken care of certain things. And you're saying that as we move along, now, something that, maybe it was mentioned and I was half asleep when you said it. Beyond what you said was a basic requirement for those who want to work in Saudi. What about the levels of education? Do you have minimum, maximum beyond which you cannot work?
So basically, it's a KCP. You have your KCP certificate. You're able to communicate in English. You're able to read and write. You're able to read instructions and things like that. Because at the end of the day, when you get to your employer's house, they're going to teach you how they like to do their own things, right? So we do not disqualify you because you did not get to your A-levels or whatever, no.
You know, in many, especially even in government and private sector, if your employer facilitates your further education, you're bonded. So you'll come back from your further education, but you'll work within this organization for at least X number of years. Is there such kind of bonding? Because somebody in Saudi Arabia is spending hundreds of thousands of shillings to bring a worker into their home. Are they bonded? Must they stay in that home?
They don't have to stay. Like I said, the probation period of 3 months, yeah? Within these 3 months, you're able to know whether the environment is conducive for you. And then you're like, you know what, this and this happened, I don't feel safe, I need to change employer. And it's always open. You have three chances to change an employer.
So formally, there's no bonding.
Yeah.
But informally, like you've said, there is bonding because you've handed over your passport, your travel documents to this person. That means you cannot leave this country without my say-so.
So what happens
is this formally recognized in this Musanad agreement between Kenya and Saudi Arabia that you will deposit your passport with your employer?
Yeah, so there is the bilateral agreement that was signed was within the kafala system. The kafala system is a sponsorship system where you get a visa through a sponsor. This is the system that they have in Saudi. So once you go there, you're under that person. Anything that you need to do, the person needs to approve. If you need to exit, the person needs to approve. So it doesn't mean that whenever your documents are needed in whatever situation, they will be available for you. It's just that he's securing them that you don't get to use his paperwork to work elsewhere.
Okay.
Right.
Who pays for medical bills?
The employer.
And this is also recognized. It's
Yes,
also in the contract.
it is one of the domestic labor law rights for the domestics in Saudi Arabia.
So in the cases that we hear an employer did not take this worker to hospital, an employer was mistreating their worker, an employer was doing this and the other, what is wrong and what would you now suggest? You are an experienced person in this field. You have seen people come and go. You have very many of you're calling them candidates, your candidates in Saudi Arabia. You have heard the problems, you've seen the problem. What needs to happen?
I did have a case of that sort. There's a lady who fell down during duty and she broke her she broke her back. And the employer refused to take her to the hospital. And the girl kept communicating to me and kept communicating to the employer and kept giving her Panadols, right? And I communicated to the office. I said, this is what is happening. This girl is not fine. You need to go and make sure that that girl goes to the hospital. So when the office went to the family, the employer still refused to take the girl to the hospital. So I told the office, this is on us. You have to take the girl, take her to hospital, first things first. So the girl was admitted in hospital and was taken care of. And then what the office did is went to the Ministry of Labor office and complained about this employer. And then eventually the employer was forced to make payment for the hospital bills for this candidate and process her return back home. So it's a matter of communication. You need to communicate with your counterparts in Saudi, show them that you know the rights, show them that you know the procedures that are supposed to be followed and make sure that they are followed. And then if the office does not cooperate with you, then you have now the authorities. I need to approach National Employment Authority, tell them, I have this issue, I need your help on this scenario. And if they're not able to do it, then they are able to check with Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with the Kenyan Embassy and see how we can go about it.
Violet, from the point of now you as a practitioner, what would you recommend to be done in terms of tightening the system at government level, at the government of Kenya, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
What needs to be done, because mostly there are some issues, there are some steps that are taken and rules passed without involving the stakeholders, in this case the agents, because we are the ones who know where the problems are, right? So I feel like we all need to work together. We all need to work together. We need to make sure that we have safe houses in different parts of the city. We need to make sure that even the Kenyan embassy in Saudi Arabia have access to the Musanet system so that whenever they have a complaint, they're able to check and know how to go about it. They need to increase the number of labor attaches in the country. We need to also educate our candidates when they're living here. What are their rights? How to handle different situations, right? And we need to also let them know how they need to behave and how they need to talk to the employer as well. And we also need to tell them, because sometimes as Kenyans, tuko na kiburi. Yeah, sometimes we like to, I'm sorry, but we like to play victim sometimes, yeah? We need to stop playing victim sometimes. We need to accept our mistakes. Where we have a mistake, we need to come out and say, we have a mistake, this is what happened, what do we do, right? And then you need to also understand, some girls when they go there, you have a problem. You don't want to accept that you have a problem. You just want to play, oh no, she did, because there's this narrative that Saudi is bad. So whatever I'm going to say is going to be counted as correct, right? So regardless, I am the correct one. You guys do whatever you need to do. Yeah.
Violet, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Violet Karan, who is a director of J Horizons Travel Agency, one of the... How many agencies are registered under NAIR?
We currently have 700 and something.
One of the 700 plus agencies registered by the National Employment Authority that are facilitating employment for Kenyans into the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and other countries as well. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
We've been live on KTN Home. We want to say goodbye to the audience on KTN Home. The conversation continues on SpiceFM across the country and also on YouTube. SpiceFM KE is our channel, and on Facebook, SpiceFM KE is our page. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is Newswire. I am Stephanie Wangari. The 13th inaugural parliamentary sitting is expected to start any time from now. Our reporter Emmanuel Tor tells us more.
Very good morning to you. Definitely a very packed day here at the Parliament buildings, as both houses, that is the Senate and the National Assembly, converge today after about 3 months hiatus for the members to get a new term. And of course, some of the businesses or the activities that we expect here is that any minute from 9 a.m. or thereabout, we'll be having the swearing in process of both members, that is the 349 members of the National Assembly and 67 at the Senate. And of course, that includes the number of those who were nominated yesterday and gazetted yesterday by the IBC. And after that, it will be straight to election for the Speaker and the Deputy Speakers, and it is a head-to-head race at the Senate where Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka is going head-to-head with the former Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi. And of course, at the National Assembly, we'll be having Moses Wetangula, who is now the former senator for Bungoma because he resigned to vie for that position, going, of course, head-to-head again with Kenneth Marenda, who is the former Speaker of that House, I think the 11th Parliament. And of course, that is what is happening here at the Parliament buildings, and we'll be keeping our listeners up to speed with what will be happening.
Diego.
That is the match we have from here. Over to you back in studio.
Mary Walingo, the embattled Masai Mara Vice Chancellor, has been granted temporary reprieve by the Public Service Commission after it ordered her reinstatement. Walingo was sent on leave in 2019 when she was implicated in an alleged 177 million shillings corruption scandal. She was charged alongside 4 other officials from the university for withdrawing money illegally in crimes dating back to 2016. She was ordered to step aside as investigations ensued. In a statement yesterday, PSC CEO Simon Rotich directed that Walingo be reinstated back to her position pending a hearing of the anti-corruption case until her contract is terminated in compliance with the law. Former Kenya National Union of Teachers Secretary General Wilson Sossion says only President-elect William Ruto knows if he is the ideal candidate to head the education ministry under his government. Sossion, who is a former nominated MP, was Ruto's key campaigner under the Kenya Kwanza Alliance coalition, which saw him elected as Kenya's 5th president. The unionist, however, says his work in Kenya Kwanza was to help come up with a manifesto and popularize it, and that he did not lobby for any cabinet position in Ruto's administration. Sossion nonetheless lauded the Kenya Kwanza's education charter as a key tool in transforming the education sector and the welfare of teachers. Exiled lawyer Miguna has requested the assumption of the Office of the President Committee to guarantee him safe passage into the country so that he can attend President-elect William Ruto's swearing in next week. In a letter drafted by his lawyer Adrian Kamodho, Miguna urged the committee chairperson Joseph Kenywa not to overlook his plight, but instead facilitate his return to Kenya as the council makes final preparations for the change of guard at State House. Njenga implored the committee to lift all red alerts that had been imposed on Miguna following his 2018 deportation. He insisted that Miguna was a legitimate Kenyan citizen. Now, President-elect William Ruto says he has reached out to his main challenger, Raila Odinga, to discuss how to forge forward as a country. In an interview with CNN, the Kenya Kwanza Alliance leader said he is focused on ensuring that his government serves all Kenyans regardless of their political affiliation. Despite having a telephone conversation with his boss Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday, Ruto says Uhuru is yet to congratulate him for his win.
Unfortunately, President Kenyatta has not seen it fit to congratulate me, but I think
All right, so still really busy in the city this morning, and we're looking at traffic still coming out of Westlands out towards major parts of the city today, and it looks like one big traffic situation. Becky says that Kiambu Road is constipated this morning. Nothing is moving, and it's moving really slowly at some parts, but for the most part, not at all. So this whole area coming then off of Oloitoktok, connecting Gitanga Road, Mzima Springs, out towards James Gishuru. Really busy traffic this morning. We're going to keep an eye on things. It's after 9 o'clock, but likely to continue for some time. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE. I try as much as possible to keep things moving.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
It is 6 minutes after 9. Good morning and welcome to the
Room,
final hour of
the
Kenya's
only way to
conversation. It's the Situation Room on SpiceFM. We have the day's proverb.
We do. From Chad. A shepherd of a herd of toads must be very patient with his rod.
A shepherd of a herd of toads must be very patient with his rod.
If you're shepherding toads, this one is not for people who are shepherding goats or shepherding sheep or shepherding camels. Toads specifically. Yes, very careful with your rod.
Lest
you are not careful.
Let's beat it to death.
Yes.
So the one angle is be careful lest you cause grievous bodily harm and you're taken to court for assault.
Toad court.
Yeah. The other one would be patient. So it's either calling for patience or calling for due care.
It's either or. It's either or. Because this is an unlikely situation. Okay? And if you put a human being into this situation, because we're the ones who are known to carry rods, and here you are shepherding this herd as opposed to an army of toads. First of all, unlikely situation. But should that happen, then a little care is required, because it is an unlikely situation. It's an unusual situation. It's an improbable situation.
Care is important because these are fragile.
Yes, everything about this situation is not normal. So a lot of care and a lot of caution is necessary.
Navigate through this situation carefully.
Yes, cautiously.
It's like if you're carrying eggs.
It is very true. That country also has a proverb that you do not carry iron rods and eggs in the same basket.
Be careful, right? So if you're a leader and you're leading people, understand the kind of people that you're leading. Know how to handle them.
Yes.
the fragility of the people that
Yes,
you're dealing
odd as they may be, strange as they may be, handle them carefully.
Handle them carefully.
And in handling them carefully, perhaps one could add, seek to understand them, even as you're shepherding them.
So what's happening now, just to give you that update, and you've heard it in the news, is the inauguration of the 13th Parliament, the 3rd Senate. Members of the newly elected members of the 13th Parliament are now in Parliament. Each of them is going to swear an oath of office. They will elect the speaker, the respective speakers of the two houses and the deputy speakers of the two houses. And then the business of Parliament will commence, the 13th Parliament. Yep. Yes. So right now, it's the clerks of the two assemblies that are addressing the members. Now they have talked about the candidates for the various positions. I mean, the speaker and the deputy speaker, those candidates who presented themselves. We are going to have the entire session of swearing in each one of them. Remember, there are how many? 345 members of the National Assembly and 60. How many members of the Senate? Each of them must swear an oath individually.
It's going to take a minute.
It's not going to be all by acclamation. All of you raise your hand. Say aye.
Swear.
No.
No.
It's each.
You for yourself.
You for yourself. And after then they are sworn in and they become members of the National Assembly and members of Senate. Then that's when they have the right to elect a speaker.
Makes sense.
Sindio?
Because right now they're actually not MPs.
They're not MPs.
Yes.
Them electing a speaker would just be like you and I electing a speaker.
So that's something we can do with great ease. In fact, we can by electing ourselves.
Chap.
Yes.
Interesting things happened yesterday in the run-up to this. The two major coalitions were meeting. The Kenya Kwanza Coalition Parliamentary Group met. The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Parliamentary Group met and were being addressed by their leaders. The Azimio leadership, led by the Azimio chairman, President Uhuru Kenyatta, were meeting in Kajiado, and we know what the president said. It was widely reported. So he talked about, you know what, we have what we have. We did not win the presidency, so we are not forming the next administration, but we've got members, very many members in National Assembly and the Senate, and we need to play our role. Of course, they acknowledged what has been happening in the last couple of weeks, which is some of the members who are affiliated to political parties that are in the Azimio also expressing support for Kenya Kwanza and its agenda and saying, we'll be supporting you in the House. And President Uhuru Kenyatta saying, look, come on, people, we need to remain united and hold this government to account. And Kenya Kwanza was also talking, and the President-elect William Ruto talking to them and saying, you know what, guys, we have the numbers, we have reached out, we have the numbers that were elected, we have reached out to various independent candidates, and they've said they will be voting with us. We also know a couple of members from the other side who...
We already know.
Yeah, we know them. Secretly, they are our guys. Yeah, publicly, they are theirs. But secretly, they are our people. They'll be voting with us. And what William Ruto said yesterday is we are going for leadership of the houses. We are not playing a balancing act here. No. We are going gung-ho. We have Speaker and Deputy Speaker, National Assembly, Speaker and Deputy Speaker,
House
Senate.
of Senate.
That is what we are going for. Nothing short of that. Something else interesting that happened. President Uhuru Kenyatta talking about the transition and the handing over on Tuesday and saying, I will do the job that I'm expected to do constitutionally. I will be at Kenyatta, it's called Kasarani. More International Sports Center Kasarani. I'll be there.
I'll also be smiling.
I will be smiling. But deep down, I know my leader is Baba. We've also heard from Deputy President William Ruto, the president-elect. He has not received a congratulatory message.
He has not reached out to me to congratulate me on my win.
Yeah. And Ruto spoke about this when he had an interview on CNN last night. Listen to what the president-elect said when he spoke to Christian Amampo of CNN.
Unfortunately, President Kenyatta has not seen it fit to congratulate me, but I think that's fine. I mean, maybe he's a bit disillusioned, or maybe he's unhappy that I defeated his candidate, but
Is
that is
it
the
really?
nature of politics.
It's the nature of politics that, yes, you will be unhappy because, I mean, things did not go your way. But is it the nature of leadership? Is it the kind of culture that we are creating? You remember, we are at that point where we are starting to establish customs, right? We are still at that point. We are only seeing a third handover of power from one president to another. Moi to Kibaki, Kibaki to Uhuru, now Uhuru to Ruto. This is only the third time in the history of this country that we are seeing that. So we are still developing and establishing customs. Is it okay for an outgoing president to feel so salty that they don't call the incoming president to tell them, congratulations, when you have a moment, you can come to State House, I show you where the bathrooms are and all those things, and I look forward to supporting you. If you ever need any support from me, please feel free to call upon me.
Look, one would argue that the days gone by that there was still the iffy situation about what would have been, ruled by the Supreme Court. And so before that, then it was a bit difficult to do it, right? To say, okay, well, we don't really know because we don't know what the result is going to be. But the outcome then after the ruling was very clear. And that you had different quarters already saying, look, this is it, man. This is the hand that we've been dealt, so we're just going to go with it. And we're going to move forward. I think in terms of practice, I think then if the agreement already was that, look, I'm going to hand over power because that is what I ought to do in the position in which I am in. I'll do it smiling, and I do it because constitutionally I am bound by this. But I think his emotion, his raw emotion, is then showing very clearly through this, and it's been made personal at a level where, for me, it'll be misunderstood greatly, especially for those who support that particular side.
Which particular side?
For those who support Baba.
The Azimio side.
How will it be misunderstood?
Because it would be as though, look, he's saying this is who my leader is, and regardless of whatever it is that you think, or regardless of whatever the status quo is, this is where our minds are purely and solely. As the outgoing president, it bears a lot of weight.
So it's like he's saying, I don't recognize William Ruto, I recognize Baba.
He fell short of just saying those words.
He didn't, no. That isn't falling short. That's actually declaring it.
He said it. He said it.
Because
he just didn't use those words, but he basically said, this is where my allegiance lies. I don't recognize this fella. This is what he said.
But what ought to be done, what ought to be said, what is the decorum? Is this the advent of a new era where we hear people who are in leadership not guarding what they think or what they feel, or not considering the impact of what they feel and then what they say in expressing these things? Or is it that someone feels that this is how they are, this is who they are, And who they are here is not the individual, but an office bearer whose words and actions will reverberate and will have an influence and eventual consequences on very many of the people who hear it.
That's what I'm
and
saying.
it will set a precedent.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. So now are you making a declaration like this without considering the number of people that it impacts by just saying that? Look at the wars that have been held. And look, in 14 days, look at the wars that have been held on both sides. Let's just take social media, for example. And then the person who would be, at the top in terms of leadership of these particular sides, and then you say something like this, what kind of implication does it have then on your band of supporters?
But there's also
people have been grouped already by things that one individual has said, and it is seen to be the belief of everybody on that side. It has seemed to be now the element or the factor that everybody else then who deals with that other side will judge you by. That you and everybody else is not accepting of this person, and you have chosen then not to recognize this person as the leader of the country. Whereby we already have people who on the other side who are saying, you know what, this is the lot that we have been dealt. Let's just move on. And then now this has been said. What do you think it does?
But what does it also say about our freedoms? Where do they begin and where do they end? And if you are a president, what responsibilities do you have with regard to the freedoms that even you as a citizen and then you as a president have? But even more importantly in my mind is, what is it that drives a person to do precisely this?
You know, freedoms is something that we can even stretch a conversation on, right? Professor Makao Mutua cited his freedom when he said, I don't recognize Uhuru Kenyatta as president until recently when he recognized him as president. Okay? But that freedom, if you say I don't recognize, if you've got institutions and you've got laws in place, a law recognizes Uhuru Kenyatta as the president of Kenya today, right? Are you bound by law, or does the freedom tell you, you know what, you can decide to stick to this law, or you can decide to go by your own opinion?
I think it does, but again, it also tells you there are consequences. The responsibility we speak of that accompanies our freedoms simply means you believe what you like. For instance, if you believe with all your heart that there's no gravity, that is fine. You just walk out of a window on a second floor and see the consequences. You have the freedom, but then there'll be the consequences. For instance, we drive on the left side of the road in this country. You can say you do not like this law, okay?
And you have a freedom to drive however, whenever.
Yeah. And yes, there'll be consequences because you'll be arrested. In addition to the fact that you may actually die. And there'll be an accident.
In other words, you don't have the freedom. You don't have the freedom to drive on the right in this country.
You do not have the right legally too. But you, if you talk about your individual freedoms,
you can do whatever you want.
You can do what you... All I'm saying is, please bear in mind that freedoms are accompanied by consequences. There is no freedom.
I'm actually saying you don't have the freedom. You see, you cannot go to court and say, you know, I was exercising my freedom.
You can actually.
You cannot say you cannot use that as your defense, and you expect that can be considered as defense.
You can try,
actually, I'm saying
but it will not be
You see, when I say when there are freedoms,
yes.
If, for example, you have freedom of association, you can use that as an argument in court. I was meeting with C.T. Muga because I have got a constitutionally guaranteed freedom of association, freedom of assembly, freedom of worship. Those ones are freedoms. Freedom to disobey the law is not a freedom.
What is it?
It's a crime. It's not a freedom. There is no freedom to disobey the law. When the law is there, you are bound by the law. You don't have freedom to wake up today and decide, you know what, I can kill this person, because I feel like it. You don't have that freedom. You don't have the freedom to drive on the right side of the road, of the road, because the law says you will drive on the left side of the road in this republic.
You know, I think you and I are talking at cross purposes, because what you're saying is true, that the law binds us to certain, not just beliefs and understandings, but also consequently certain actions. And that if you go against them, all I'm saying is that there will be consequences. I was looking at this particular perspective from an absolutist perspective. Meaning, that's why I give the example of walking off a ledge on a second floor because you don't believe that. I mean, you will die.
Yes, you will.
If you don't die, you'll be permanently injured. I mean, you'll be injured in a way that recovery will be almost next to impossible. That's really all I'm saying. Now, and I'm adding this, and I'm saying that when one talks of freedoms, one must always talk of freedoms within a context. And that's, I believe, is what you're saying. That the context of the law is that, look, there's some things you're not allowed to do.
Yeah.
Okay? So, yes, you're free. But this one, you're not, actually not allowed to do. And if you do them, then essentially what you're doing is you're now breaking the law.
And I think in addition to that, there's also, I mean, it's just in context to what we're speaking of now, even if you are going to express those freedoms, there's also the realization that there is a whole universe of life that is going on despite the expression of your freedom.
Yeah.
That there are different stances then that people who you even think you may be shepherding have also taken. That they are moving on with a certain aspect of life. And that one would say it would be best if they be allowed to embrace it and just move on with it. Because there is no telling the influence that you will have, not just on your own supporters, but on the other side to do certain things because of that exclamation you have made. Now, if we're talking about decorum and practice, if there was one man who could not believe, could not imagine that the opponent of his candidate would have won, it was Barack Obama. And he said, okay. But I picked up the phone and I spoke to Donald Trump and I welcomed him to the White House so that we could have a conversation about how this transition was going to occur. It was unfathomable for him at that point, but he did it. And he said, look, the law requires, but at the same time, I'm going to do the thing and extend this hand.
There's customs and traditions.
Because there are traditions then that we must then follow. Knowing that the country is divided, knowing, he said this in his speech, knowing that the country is already divided, this would be one way that I am showing that there must be unity in this transition. And he did it because that was the longer game that he was seeing. And I'm saying that for me, it felt a little bit off color yesterday when I read those words. And I said, you know what, here we are, and we're saying there are people who, after Monday, said, okay, well, this is the lot that we've been dealt. Let us move on. And I'm talking about the people that support Raila Odinga. Truth be told, that they have said in numbers, all right, as difficult as it may be, let us move on. Let us move forward. And for me, it was a bit off color.
You know, this mantra, this statement that we make in this country and we repeatedly say it, accept and move on, I personally do not subscribe to it. I subscribe to moving on, but I subscribe to looking, examining, questioning, coming to an understanding. If you move on and you haven't understood or made your peace from a position of understanding about what it is that you yourself are going through in relation to your reaction to a situation, why it is what you think happened, and perhaps facing something unpleasant. It's called the truth. That you may think that this happened, but in reality, this is what actually happened. You may not want to accept it, but if you can't get to accept it, you will not have moved on. You will talk about moving on. You will give the appearance of having accepted, but it's not even accepting grudgingly. You won't have accepted, you'll just be saying it. Why do I say this? Disappointment has consequences. There's a way in which emotionally people will react. And to be able to come to terms with it so that you can genuinely move on, one of the things you have to do is to accept certain realities. In an election, you have to ask yourself the hard questions. This belief that I have, what is it based on?
Sure.
The position I have taken, what is it based on? Is it possible, for instance, that the person whom I felt shouldn't win actually did win?
Yes. And now if you bring into this conversation the realities that you speak of.
Yes.
Because in the situation in which we are in as much as and this I think is where the pain that people feel exacerbates. Because the truth be told, save for an act of God, right now, there is not little, there is nothing that you can do about the situation. When you have examined those what would be truths to yourselves, according to the same law that we all hedge all of this on, it has said that the adjudicators of the highest institution of adjudication in the land has said 1, 2, 3. There is nothing that you will do today that will overturn that decision. So the question is, do you say, I will not in my mind accept city? It doesn't take the person closer to that place. Because you've already said, this moving on that you're talking about, it will not happen. Because you've decided that you're not going to accept it. So you remain in that position and you remain there for as long as you decide that, because the truth of the matter is that there will be no opposite of that situation that you're in today. There is nothing that you will do that will change the circumstance. And I think that is the reality that all of this then must be hedged on.
But it also bears questioning also is what I mentioned in passing. How does one get to a position where they feel very strongly that they are unwilling? Because it's unwilling to accept something. What is it?
But guys, there's that whole conversation which we can move to everybody else. But there's that whole conversation when it comes to the president of the republic. I separate those two. The person of Uhuru Kenyatta can feel, can what. But Uhuru Kenyatta, the person, stopped being Uhuru Kenyatta, the person, in 2013. That was it. Uhuru Kenyatta will forever and a day not be the person again. Once he assumed office of president, he was president for the last 10 years, 9 years. He is going to be a former president until he dies. He is going to be somebody who is a different caliber of a citizen. Now, we are establishing tradition here. We are establishing that tradition where Uhuru Kenyatta was sworn in as president and he served as president and he will be exiting office as president, right? That is part of the tradition. The other beat of the tradition is this one, the decorum that comes with it. Should it be a matter of opinion or good feeling or whatever that he does this handover? He's saying he's bound by the constitution to do the handover. Can he wake up that morning and feel, Miss Jiski kwenda Kasarani, chukweni hizi sword mukampeleke?
No.
You know, I don't see where the problem is because I see consistency here.
With?
The president. In 2017, when the Supreme Court overturned that particular election, what did he say? We shall revisit. I'm quoting it directly.
Yeah.
We shall revisit. Now, it's a fairly benign thing to say. But one of the things that President Uhuru's government was known for was disregarding court rulings. So, if there is a court ruling that he is unhappy with, and this seems to be one such instance, is there something that he is doing that is different from what he has done before?
It is not, and he's got to be called out. He's got to be called out. He's got to be told, hey, listen, my friend, the last act that you are doing as president, the last one, and you should do it, is acknowledge the new president.
Yeah.
Part of the things that you do in this establishment of tradition is do the thing that should be done, which is you were called by Mwai Kibaki when you were declared winner. Do the same to your successor. Call them, congratulate them, say, there's the office of the transition. It's called what? Office of Assumption of Office of the President.
Yes.
Yeah, that one, the committee on the assumption. They will be reaching out to you.
And look,
if there's anything that you need from me. It's simple.
And
Just those simple things.
There's no secret that you don't like it. It's not a secret.
Yeah, we all know you don't like it.
Everybody knows what side you were on. It's just, look, it's like a tennis match. It was established in the Grand Slams. It's that you finished the match. This person whooped you. You were expecting to win. You are the number one player in the world. This person put your guts on the court. But you finish that match, whether you like it or not, you shake your opponent's hand, you shake the referee's hand, and you move to fight another day.
Yes.
You don't like it, you do it, it's tradition, we move. You don't like it, we can see you don't like it. You want it to win? Absolutely, we can see. But tradition dictates that you say, come on guys, we're the opponent, we did this, we move. For
this is
me,
what we expect of presidents.
Done. It's presidential.
It's presidential.
Truth be told.
I expect this of President Uhuru Kenyatta. I expect this of Raila Odinga. I don't expect it of, say, who?
Some guy.
Yeah. I don't expect Jeremiah Kioni, the Secretary General of Jubilee,
or outgoing governor of,
to call Ruto.
Kivuda Kibwana.
Yeah, or
and say,
to call Ruto. He may choose to do it, he may choose not to do it. That's fine. But you, President, do it. You ought to do it. We've got to get to that point where we're saying, yes, we are advancing our democracy, we're entrenching our democracy. Part of this entrenching of our democracy is establishing these traditions. And unless there's a reason why you're telling us we cannot start establishing the traditions, then, my friend, I think you're out of order. 27 minutes to 10. We want to hear from you as well. 0719-012-600. Should President Uhuru Kenyatta call his successor, William Ruto, and acknowledge his win, say congratulations, and then move on? Should this happen as part of our establishing a tradition, or should it not? 27 to 10. 25th of September,
yes.
2022. What's happening?
I'm wearing my big red hat.
Yeah.
and I'm going to teeter-totter about in some high heels because it's the Concours d'Elegance, and it's happening at the Nairobi racecourse, and we're going to see CT's things, the vintage vehicles in the company of other people, the two-door vehicles, all those fancy-looking like chariot vehicles and things like that. It's going to be one wonderful Sunday afternoon where there will be, activities for children. You can come out, bring your cars. It'll be a fun afternoon of fashion and looking at all the wonderful vehicles that make up the Concours d'Elegance.
Tonight from between 6 and 8 p.m., the Standard will be hosting a Twitter space, which is talking to Dear Mr. President, what changes would you like to see with William Ruto's government? What would you like to see with the William Ruto administration? Conversation taking place on Twitter space this evening, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so we're looking at light rain still continuing at 16 in Nairobi, highs of 20 and lows of 14. Mostly cloudy at 17 in Nakuru. It'll go to highs of 18 in Nyeri, where it's pretty chilly this morning with rain showers at 13, and it's raining at 16 in Eldoret with highs of 22 and lows of 12. The rain is still coming down in Mombasa at 26, highs of 29. 28 will be the high in a rainy Malindi at 26. Kisumu raining at 22, highs of 27, and 26 will be the high in a rainy Kakamega. It's also raining in Kampala, sunny in Dar es Salaam, going to highs of 29. We're looking at sunny conditions at 15 in Johannesburg, highs of 24, and we'll see lows of 24 in Lagos, where it's cloudy at 25. 29 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Kinshasa at 23. And Paris, out in Beijing, 32 and sunny. Paris, thunderstorms at 16, and 14 and cloudy in London. We'll see highs of 26 in a mostly cloudy New York Wednesday night at 21. All right, the clock says we're coming to the end of traffic hour, but it's still pretty heavy in some parts of the city where we are looking at it. Langata Road still pretty busy now. We're looking at Huru Highway out into the CBD. The western part of the city been doing its thing all morning, and it's still very, very busy on the Thika Superhighway today. Okay, so it looks like traffic hour might end just a tad later than normal, but we're going to keep an eye on things. Roads are slippery, folks. Don't forget, be as careful as possible, and talk to us through the morning on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Mornings done
right.
719-012-600 should President Uhuru Kenyatta call his successor, William Ruto, congratulate him formally and officially. Congratulating him. What do you feel? Uncle Deno says the president should just move on and stop carrying politics in his heart. Ukibeba siasa kwa roho takufa. Zachary.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I'm very happy, and you guys also sound very happy. It seems that you have not depleted your August pay. Yeah. Now, oh my God. Now, let me first of all say that I've just come across somebody who has hanged himself.
Aye.
And he left a note that life has become too hard.
Aye.
So as Uhuru decided not to call Mr. Ruto.
At your place in Gatondo?
No, at a place called Githogori, just near a shopping center called Wakari. I don't know whether you know that place, Mr. Eric.
No, I don't know it.
Just near Komodai Girls, yeah?
Oh, okay, yes, I know Komodai.
The man has left a note saying that life has become too hard. And I also give me this forum to call out the KCB Bank. Kaidri.
No. You talk about the topic that made you call Buana.
If you want to talk to KCB, call them.
Call them.
No, okay, I wanted to say that their CRB moves are very primitive and they should rectify it, yeah?
So did you need our permission? Because you've just gone ahead and done what you wanted to do anyway.
No, I was just...
Zachary.
Off-cast the remarks, yeah?
Should your village mate call the man from Sugoi?
Yeah. Now, this is the point, Mr. Eric, and the panel, yeah? Uhuru Kenyatta's life has been a life of, I want a goat's head, it is here. I want to go to Switzerland, it is here. I want blue jeans, it is here. There's a guy whose life has revolved around money, and what money can buy, yeah? And this election was not the exemption. He believed in money. And actually, to illustrate my point, when Ruto and Mr. Gachagua and the Kenya Kwanza team was going to the common person, saying Wajiko, Mama Boga, Boda guy, and the rest, yeah? Uhuru talked of the Studio that 9 billionaires from Mount Kenya. So to him, he believes in money, and it is excusable because he is a guy who has been brought on through a silver. I do not think that Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta has ever faced very serious problems, except now during the ICC case.
So is that the reason he's not calling?
So coming to terms with the fact that he shall be referring to Mr. Ruto as his, a son who of a no one's his father is not known, yeah. It's just a common person. It's only that his merit has placed him where he is, and he has good connection with the common person, yeah, people. It is not what it is not coming making sense to Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta.
Zachary, you mentioned that the president hasn't gone through difficulties. How many elections did he lose in Gatundu?
Many, but
did he also not lose a presidential election?
He did, and also failed for the first time, yeah?
So is he the sort of person who is happy when he loses? Or how many people do you know of who are usually very happy and very joyful when they lose?
This is what I'm saying, Warim. Who has faced problems. Neither personal, public, or alone. But what I'm saying is this. Losing an election in Gatondo or even during 2002 didn't mean that he wouldn't have caviar. You told me fish egg are called caviar. It didn't mean that Uhuru would take caviar when he wants it. So, I mean, it doesn't really make sense to him. May I advise him, yeah? You, Eric, you know that our old women, elderly women, they are very good at consoling a person. They will tell you, Holera, God's grace is sufficient. God will be coming to look after you. You know, our women, our women, let him come here at the village. Those women are so many. They will be giving him domas, uji, and some milk to calm him.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, guys.
Asante. Pinto in Asembo, Siaya.
Yes, Pinto from Asembo, still calling from the outskirts of Nairobi. Hi, guys.
Good morning.
I think what is happening with the situation with our president and the president-elect is divided between being human and doing what one has to do. President Uhuru being human, there's some part of his emotions that he has to let out. And the best way he can do that, I think, is vocalizing whatever he has vocalized, however unsavory it is. The other part is now the one that he says, yes, I'll go there, I'll smile, and I'll do my part. We as Kenyans now shouldn't read a lot into him not calling and congratulating, depending on whichever side of the divide we are. We have to also find our space in all this. But presently, I think we are rolling on the right trajectory. What people have done before or attempted to do previously, should we have opted to go that way, would be ugly now. So his big appeal to take, if it is just a phone call, I think is wrong, but he should do it because President-elect also had a sour side when the BBI things were going on, and we could see them laughing and shaking hands with Baba and doing that. He had his humiliation to take. So President Uhuru's side of it is only bad because now the entire world will have to see it, and it is complicated by his stand.
Okay.
What he has said publicly, yes.
Thank you, Pinto. Have a good day.
Thank you.
George in Nakuru.
George in Nakuru. Today, George is in Holo, somewhere called Holo in Kisumu. I know
Muga knows Holo.
Yes, it's on the outskirts of Kisumu. You're going towards Seme.
Yeah, that's hapo ndio kwetu. That is my home place now.
Ah, you're from Holo place.
I'm from Holo.
Okay.
Now, about the topic, I don't want to read much of the president not calling the president-elect. Because if it were anything anchored in law that you have to, then I think we'll be questioning the reason why after the Supreme Court had declared. But because I suppose there is nothing like such anchored in law that he has to call and congratulate. And because he lost, they lost. Because Azimio was his party of choice, and the candidate of Azimio was his presidential candidate that he hoped that would win and succeed him.
So it's not in law, but should it be? Should it be something that he does, to establish this common decency and practice going forward?
I agree with you in totality, but you see, we are human beings, and everybody has got their own feeling, and how to control those feelings also are different, right?
Yeah.
So I know sometimes whatever happened or whatever was said during the campaign trail is still hard. So maybe let us give him time and see what happens on inauguration day. Yeah.
Sawa. Thank you, George.
So we might congratulate him then. So
there's still time.
Yeah, there's still time.
Thank you, George. Lydia.
Good morning, SpiceFM.
Good morning.
Lydia.
Good morning, City, Ndu, and Eric.
Good morning, Lydia.
Every day. We are very happy. And also, I wanted to say, it's time now for our present Uhuru Kenyatta president should now hand over happily so that life can go on with new duties to William Ruto. His votes proved that he had more votes than Raila. The judge closed the case very quickly because time would waste and it would cost Kenya many billions to restart from scratch again. So we should move on peacefully. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Have a lovely day. Kim in industrial area.
Hi, Lattice.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. My concern for Uhuru is it seems like he's mourning more than the bereaved. Because for me, it's like he has nothing to lose apart from him investing much on his candidature on Raila. He's mourning more than the bereaved. It's like he's more hurt even than Raila. It begs the question: what is behind this thing? Why is there that animosity? So I think it just needs to let go and accept and move on. It's a competition, but the more he brings out himself out, it's like there's something behind. We don't know what is it.
There's something deeper.
Yes, it's more deeper. Because for Raila it is acceptable, but for him, really, you are the current president. Your regime is done. Why are you more hard? Yeah.
All right, good questions. Thank you very much and have a lovely day, Kim.
Yes, thank you.
Jackson in Mtwapa.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good.
How is Kilifi County?
Kilifi County is well.
Very good.
And we appreciate and thank God we are seeing rain every time. And we have so many maize here.
Good.
Tunakula mahindi kama kitu ingine.
Yeah. Should the president call William Ruto to congratulate him?
I think Mr. President has nothing he wants maybe from Ruto. It is Ruto who is wanting the transition to be done for him. So I think if Mr. Ruto need a call, he's the one who is supposed to call. Let him call.
Okay.
Kama unataka simu si upige.
Pige simu ni nini?
Kama apige simu, credit ako nayo. Wacha kwa sababu gani nasema hivi This guy just after Chebukati and the court decided to announce him as a winner. The first thing he says that now they are going to be resting on after 4 years of blackmailing and whatever. So ukiangalia hizo maneno zote, hizi blackmailing alikuwa anasema na threat, ni nani alikuwa anafanya? Sasa kama alisema alikuwa ameblackmailiwa na amekuwa threatened 4 years, then why is he telling us that he needs to be congratulated or he wants a call? He has won.
Wow.
You cannot force someone to congratulate you.
Okay, Jackson, thank you.
Wacha pambane tu na hali yake, tuendelee na sisi tunajua kwamba Kenya ni yetu sote. Ukinunua unga 200, jana nilikuwa supermarket, I was just passing by doing window shopping, niliona unga ya sima ni 198 na mimi niliambia Mungu tusaidie mahindi iwe mingi. Mimi nashaga by the way.
Good. Lovely day, Jackson. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's cross over to Mombasa. Dickens, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Very well.
Okay, I just wanted to speak to this topic. I believe there is no legal obligation for the president to congratulate William Ruto. But there are definitely some underlying issues that they're not bringing up now from when they fell apart. That is probably pushing him to this limit. I think for purposes of closure, the president at this point needs to come out clean on what really, caused all this fall apart. That way, as Kenyans will understand better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come out and tell us what exactly is the issue. Thank you, Dickens. Let's hear from James in Rongai. Good morning.
Hi, Luoko.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you people doing?
We're well, James.
Okay, I'm doing well, yeah?
Should the president call the incoming president?
Nothing, he has nothing to call. Call him who won the election. The election was rigged.
Okay.
Yeah, he has no business whatsoever. Yeah.
So should he hand over on Tuesday?
Sorry?
Should he
handing over is a must. Handing over is a must. But I would like to say this to I would like to wish the outgoing president all the best in life. He has been the best president, the best. In fact, we miss him.
Uhuru.
Yeah. Yeah, we miss him. We really miss him so much. We love him.
Thank you, James.
Our military institution is not working.
Yeah.
All, they are not working. It's what you have. It is not about democracy. It's what you have that you are willing to give for you to get that.
By the way, James, the beauty of being in Kenya and being a Kenyan is we have a constitution that allows us the freedoms that we are now all enjoying.
They corrupt those constitutions, those institutions.
Yes, but that is your view. But let me just say this:
not my view. It is a truism. It is on, that's the bottom line.
It is true, but when you want to talk about a country that is ruled by the rule of law, unfortunately, you don't have to be happy about the law. No. If it is the law and it is clear it is the law, your job is to accept it.
Everything must be fair in this country. Everything must be fair. They didn't open the server. They're talking of, hot air. It is nonsense.
Thank you, James. Odhiambo Gor in Nairobi. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Very well.
Good to hear your voice one more time after quite a spell of time.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Gor.
The debate going on is quite healthy, but there is something which we appear to be missing.
Mm-hmm.
By the president behaving the way he is behaving, he is simply telling the nation of his original intention.
Mm.
The original intention here is that president probably did not want to did not want to leave power.
Mm.
He wanted to carry on with leadership of this country by proxy, by pretending. That's why he's taking it personal. He wanted, and again, that's the reason he was going to be the chairman of Azimio, which was going to be the ruling party, and he is setting a very wrong precedent. This debate, I think, needed some sense of higher maturity than the way some of these scholars are behaving.
Mm.
Yes, if you are saying there is nothing Ruto should call him, what should call him? Now, you are saying like that because this time it is Ruto, but how about tomorrow? We are talking about a country which should live beyond, in posterity. What precedent are we setting?
Yep.
Yeah, head of state, yes. He was holding that office on behalf of the public, not on his own behalf.
Mm.
He may not necessarily be happy with the court ruling, but the same thing he should reflect on his side. I mean, the other side, court ruled in his favor in 2013 when he did not win.
Mm.
And the other time also, court ruled in Aila's favor, which again Aila didn't want to comply with. I mean, we are leading a very funny, political signal system.
Mm.
So I think the head of state has no choice. Let us talk of Kenya. Let him not personalize Kenya.
Thank you.
You so much indeed, guys.
Thank you, Gor. Good day. Enoch in Kiambu, finally.
Finally. Eric, how are you?
Very well, thanks.
Mwalimu.
Baba, hujambo lakini?
Jambo. Do?
Yes, sir.
How are you doing?
I'm very fine, thank you.
We decided to give you a break.
Mm.
Yeah, and we see where
the chips fall. Welcome back, Enoch. So, in about a minute, because time is running out, what do you think of today's topic?
I think President Uhuru is behaving as the mother of impunity in this country. Because there are simple things which he can do. He doesn't do even about the court ruling.
Mm.
Yes, he said he accepts, but he does not agree with the ruling. But with the verdict. But this has been his way of life with the constitution. I think he is one of the presidents who has disobeyed the court order. I think 23 times, or 21 times.
Mm.
So he is not a very good president.
Mm-hmm.
So his behavior is king to him.
So
which is a bad behavior. Actually, it's bad manner.
He's sticking to his script.
So if you have a president who shows you his emotions and is open about it, he then qualifies to be a bad president.
I don't think there's some extent there are some limits the way we behave.
Mm.
Munga, you can annoy me, but I don't need to go shouting at you. I have a right to shout, but I look at you. You still have your respect. I need to keep it.
Mm.
Why do I shout to you? And this is our president. Actually, this like a bit of some that drums here, like a young boy. I don't know what's his problem. I think it's wrong.
We hear you. Thank you very much, Enoch. Wow. He still has time. There's still Friday, there's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. He could even just choose, instead of calling you, I wanted to come and see you directly here at Kasarani and congratulate you one-on-one.
As I hand over.
And by the way, apart from Collins, he can just go and visit the guy.
Yeah.
See, I was just passing by.
Yeah. After all, he visited Karen just the other day.
So on the way. Karen is Karen.
Karen is Karen. Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's Biggest Conversation today. Join us again tomorrow morning. I think episode 3 of County 49 comes out today on Showmax. Go and watch it and and enjoy the show. See you again tomorrow morning. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
The new Spice Up Your Life.